I figured we would just jump right into it. I know sometimes we'll catch up a little bit before the recording, but I thought some of the stuff I want to catch up with is good for the show. Anyway, it's just me and Dan. Back to an old
Yeah.
fireside chat site type setup here for episode 234. And well, Dan, first of all, welcome back. I know you were off last week
I was also learning and growing and
and aging.
evolving and aging. Technically because it was my 2 year it was I was celebrating some things
Hmm.
Twitch wise. Several things actually.
Nice. Where can people watch you on Twitch just in case they aren't doing it yet?
You can go to twitch.tv and then search for dapper underscore chocobo
Hmm.
underscore in there.
If
Although
you guys
if
will, on video, take a look at Dan. And a little bit from where you're seeing him to the right above his head, you can see a very dapper chocobo with a monocle, top hat, the whole deal. So if you see that and something inside you just kind of like, I like that. I don't know what I
yeah,
just like it. You need to go watch Dan's stream. Like
not so much
that's,
this,
don't worry
but
about this.
this,
Yeah,
yes.
this right here.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you guys get it. You guys totally
Yeah,
get it.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Uh, well, Dan, I spent a good chunk of my day today in the PC world. Now, when we
Oh.
launched this podcast, we had come off of the heels of wrapping up Fathers of the Grind. Derek and
Mhm.
I launched it. You joined us. The theme around it was supposed to be about gaming from a dad's perspective, which it was for a while, and then it just kind of became a pretty general. Let's just talk about all the games we like, regardless of the perspective. And we started having folks like you on and others, and whether or not they had kids, we just still just were talking video games. So we pivoted and said, let's talk about. I don't know if you remember, we had a whole bunch of different ideas for the podcast name, and it was
Right.
generally centered around the idea of console wars. We talked about console wars maybe being a name of the podcast too.
Sure.
And I'm really glad we didn't go that way because as all of us have kind of ebbed and flowed on what we like, what we don't like, our buddy Jeff, who we 100% are excited and I hope will rejoin us at some point, just like all of us, he kind of hit a I'm not really gaming right now moment. I'm going to focus on other things in life,
Yeah.
period of
Being
time. And so
talented, being a
being super
talented human
talented
being.
and go check
Yeah.
out his music if you haven't yet. He's very, 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 very good. Um, and so it's the same thing with consoles. Like I was very much I played PlayStation and Nintendo and sometimes Xbox. That was kind of always my thing. And then I started to lean back into PC. I got myself a mid-level PC about 4 years ago. And today, Dan, I went with
Oh.
my son up to, it was about an hour
Oh.
drive up to
Yep,
Denver.
yep, yep. Hmm.
We went up to Micro Center. If you're not familiar, it's like the mecca for getting all things PC parts. And
I love that those still exist, by the
me
way.
too.
Makes me
Yeah, it's
I
super cool. It's got lots of pre-built stuff, laptops, and desktops and everything in between, all the gadgets you would want. But it also has an entire build your own PC section where they've got a whole crew of experts, super friendly, at least in my experience,
mm,
but incredibly knowledgeable. This guy was just this encyclopedia, a super friendly, helpful. I want to get you as much savings as I can. Like, and it didn't feel like fake. It felt like a
yeah.
dude who like legitimately was like, all right, how about this one? The brand on this piece doesn't really matter. So why don't we save 20 bucks here? But on
Yep.
this case, you're not gonna have enough airflow. Why don't we try like so he kept me under a budget that I wanted, and he was great. He was awesome. And
Basically he's actually passionate about the stuff there.
he
Like
you could tell
you
you
care.
could tell he's built his own several times. He cares about it, and he
Yeah.
wanted us to have a good build. And but I got to give my son Kale, he's 17, got to give him like 98% of the credit here. Like I funded the thing. That's where my credit comes
Sure.
in, and I assisted a bunch today with the build. But he's been planning this for weeks and weeks, maybe months of like what parts would we get? What's the build like? What's compatible with what? He knew what motherboard to get. He knew whether or not you would need to overclock it depending on which GPU you got. Like he's been studying this stuff.
Yeah.
And so he already had a cart in the Micro Center digital store, and we showed him what we had, and they got us most of that, but then got us a couple better slash cheaper versions of other pieces and stayed under budget. And so yeah, we went and did that. We took one of his buddies with us, who also upgraded a monitor for himself. He bought a monitor there
Nice.
too.
Nice.
And yeah, hauled it all back home. And this afternoon, again, mostly Kale, my oldest son, has been doing the build. I got to give him most of the credit, although I
Yeah.
was in there too, helping unpack things, helping try to figure out like there's certain parts on the motherboard depending on your power supply or the case you got that's not 100% clear where it goes. Things are labeled
Yeah.
maybe a little differently. So we do a lot of Googling and YouTube watching, and we solved a few things together, but he did most of it. And right before we started recording, he actually got it fired up, and the BIOS screen came up, so he can kind of look into the innards of how things are running. Are the fans all on the same speed settings? And so
Nice.
he's fiddling with that right now. I just gave him a Windows installer on a USB thing, so he
Okay.
can go get that going. Um, but
He's
yeah,
still
man, it's
tinkering.
yeah, he's doing all the tinkering. He's gonna set it up. So in case you're all wondering, I bought it. Am I just giving my 17-year-old this brand new PC? No. No.
No, I'm putting him to work and then keeping
No,
it.
this is my PC. But I currently, so this is a 4070 Super, this PCB put together. It's going to be really nice. I currently just have a 2K or 1440p monitor, and it's a
Mm,
pretty nice one. It's a Samsung monitor. It works really well. But so that's all I'll use for a little bit. But when I have a few additional funds, when funds kind of recoup from this big purchase, I do plan on getting an upgraded 4K screen because this PC will be able to run 4K without
yeah.
any trouble. So that being said, my PC, which is the 2070 Super, which I know sounds super old, it actually runs stuff really well. And for 1440p gaming, it's great. I would
Yeah.
say most, even the brand new games, you can run around medium to high depending on the game. And a lot of games you can still run at top settings and get anywhere from 45 to 60 frames per second, depending on the game and depending on um, it's mostly on the requirements of the game. Is it optimized? So with
Yeah.
DLSS you can do a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, man, that's been my day. It's been a lot of fun.
I mean, I I remember like when I was younger, I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. And then I don't know, as I've gotten older, I'm like, it terrifies me because like
Yeah.
I look at that thing behind me, I'm like, I don't know if I could like put that together. Like I don't know if I
Mhm.
could. I mean, I suppose I
Yep.
could do the research. I know how to do the research and where to look around, and I probably could really, but I don't know. It's just you look at it and it's daunting. It
What's
just looks
crazy is
really
that like I thought, hey, we're gonna buy a bunch of pieces today, and in my mind, I'm like, over the next few weeks, we'll spend some hours tinkering with this thing and fine
mm,
tuning. And within the same day, we drove there, talked to the guy, bought it all, brought it home, unpacked it, and it's running already. Like
yeah,
it was so easy. And we didn't get liquid cooling. We went with air cooling. It saved us
okay,
money. And I know it's going to last a little longer. We actually did some comparisons with pricing and but feel really confident in the actual unit that we got. We got a really good deal on a really good air cooling unit. I know there's a lot of strong opinions out there in the PC world about which is better. I think you can make an argument for either one based on longevity, which one looks cooler,
yeah,
quietness, all those different factors. But for the build that we got, feel pretty good about the air cooling. And so yeah, that was probably the most challenging piece was once you had all the pieces on the motherboard put together and had it installed into the case, and then trying to figure out how to get the mounting bracket on the back of the motherboard and then get the cooling unit to properly sit on top of the CPU. That was a little bit nerve-wracking just knowing how sensitive those pieces are.
yeah.
But we worked on it together. We watched it super carefully. We followed all the instructions and felt really like once it was all in place and secure and we checked and double and triple checked, we felt really good about it. Like it was so
You
satisfying.
give it that little bit of like a wiggle. You're like, all right,
Oh yeah.
this seems okay.
Yep. Now, most of I mean, it's been designed so well over the years. Like if 20 years ago, this probably would have been crazy difficult and you probably would have
Yeah.
to take some classes. Everything is so user friendly and kind of done for you. A lot of it's labeled
Okay.
really clearly. If you get we got a really good case. It's not like flashy, doesn't have a ton of LED lights. I actually was like, I don't care about those. It sits under my desk. It's not behind me like yours is where you can see it.
I don't care about it either. Too. I don't care about that.
So like my current one has these LED lights on the fans. No one ever sees them. So
Okay.
like they don't do anything for anyone really. All it tells me is if the
Right.
computer is on. That's all it does. So now all I have is there's a couple of my RAM cards have built-in LEDs, so those will glow
Right.
when it's running. That's
Yep.
it. And I don't really, honestly, I don't really care about that. If I'm gonna do LEDs, I'll do them on my background here. I'll get that
Yeah.
fixed up a bit. But anyway, yeah, man, it's working. I think he just felt, well, I do too, but especially my son, I think felt an incredible sense of accomplishment when
Yeah.
at first it fired up and everything was running. The fans were working, everything was great. And we plugged it into the monitor, nothing came on. So we powered it all back down, checked that everything was plugged in, nothing seemed to be off. So then we fired it all back up, and then the BIOS screen came on that time. So,
Okay.
so yeah, we were able to see
So
everything. It's all great.
so nothing needed to be changed in that, but for
Nope.
some reason it just didn't boot
I
on.
think it had to do with I'm guessing it had to do with the fact that it was not plugged into the monitor yet. And so
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so yeah, it just didn't display, but then it did at the
Yeah.
second time around. So yeah, man, it's pretty cool. So yeah, what's gonna happen is my 2070 Super, which is a pretty solid rig. It's not great, but it like definitely you can play all the newest stuff. You just have to lower the settings and expectations. But no, everything runs like I'm playing Black Myth Wukong on it a little bit, and I
Oh,
still
okay.
think it looks fantastic
Yeah.
on this 1440p screen that I have. So anyway, he is gonna get quite a good deal from me, like not going to make him pay very much for it at all. Like he basically has earned it by doing all this work to help me get upgraded.
Sure. Sure.
Um, so yeah, that's going to be
Yeah,
his
you got that
first
free
PC.
child labor, so you know.
Free, I'm paying for it with this old
True.
PC of mine, you know.
Sure.
But he's probably now that he's got this now, I'm guessing he'll want to fire it up and use it and play. But at some point, he's probably going to want to power it all down, open up this thing, and figure out it's a pre-built. So he'll probably want to open it up and be like, all right, what can
Hype
I
it up a
do?
little, or like add stuff to it
He's
to
going to
make
want
it
to
more.
clean it up because I rarely do that. I'm not very good about that kind of stuff. So he's going to want to
Yeah.
like clean it up. He's going to want to figure out what pieces are maybe wearing a little bit that he could replace that are cheap. He'll probably want
Yeah.
to add some RAM to it. So anyway.
Well, that is the nice thing about a PC versus a console. The
Hmm.
you can do that if you have the know-how and
Yep.
figuring all that out. So
Yeah, he
uh,
knows, and he already knows limitations on things like power supply and motherboard. If you want, you can't just grab a new graphics card and go. You have to have all these
yeah,
compatibility pieces, and so he already knows that better than I do. So
yeah,
anyway, so that's been my adventure. Thought I'd share that. It's been a good time.
that's a fun adventure to
Yeah.
share, especially with the kid.
Yeah, it's been a good
It's
time. And I am very excited. Sometime I would imagine during this next week, it will be up and running enough where I can set it up here in my office. I'll switch over to that monitor and because I've already got I have an external hard drive and I've got most of my important, like non-cloud files that are just sitting on my computer. So I do a lot of freelance work, my full-time job, as well as just personal projects and this podcast work. A lot of files are just local files on this PC. And I think I've got all of that stuff on this external hard drive. So I'm pretty much ready. Everything else is like just got to reinstall certain programs and
yeah,
re-download some Steam library. Like I don't need to bring on any of that stuff. Everything's cloud backed up.
relog into everything.
Just relog. I mean, that's going to
Just
be
all
one of
that
those.
stuff.
That's going to be like a full afternoon or evening of doing that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But
And
once
then
it's done,
probably
it's done.
like setting stuff to download and then going to bed. That kind of a night, you know.
Right. Yes.
But yeah. So hopefully this week that'll happen. We'll see. You know, I don't know if it'll make any difference next week if we get on a call and I'm using it. Don't know if because it'll be the same webcam. It'll
Dude,
just be a
Skype is gonna
different
go so much
machine.
faster. The Skype is gonna be so
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, I'm helping Microsoft out here. I'm fixing their problems.
So fast.
Yeah, it's gonna be so
Uh,
fast. So
it's
yeah.
so funny how whenever I bring up Skype to all these young kids when I'm streaming, like at any point, they're like, "What? Skype's still a thing? Like, what are you guys doing?" It's like, yeah, that's what we're using.
Might
So,
as well have said MySpace at that point, you know?
right, yeah, basically. Hey, listen, shout out to MySpace. All right,
Yeah.
could have you had you'd add a song to your profile, Tim.
Your
That
favorite friends. You can have
represented
your list of favorite 8
right,
friends.
and insult everyone else.
Yeah, that's right. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I was on the favorites and now I'm gone. What did I
Yeah, I'm not
do?
there anymore. What happened? And then you'd send them an instant message. Like, what did I do?
On
What did I do?
AIM, you mean
Yeah,
on
yes,
Instant
exactly.
Messenger?
Yes,
Oh
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
I remember back in
Yeah, we're
college, my
old.
buddy and I, we built some quasi fame across our campus for writing this parody song called Wasted My Life on IM. And we like recorded it
Nice.
and posted it on whatever file sharing service we used back in the early
Mm,
2000s.
Kazaa or something.
I know YouTube didn't exist, but I know it was being shared around. It was our version of Small Town College viral. You know, like everyone had seen it at a certain point.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time.
Famous.
Anyway, all right. Let's jump into some new stuff from this week. And then, if you're up for it, Dan, we're going to recap opening night live. We're going to talk through all the big announcements from the kickoff of Gamescom, announcements, trailers, the main show. Kind of did you get a chance to watch it, or at least
I
some of the trailers?
I was yeah. I mean, like, so the pre-show I actually
Well, that's
when I
because
was
that's Kyle. That's Kyle Bossman, right?
right, yeah, and I always forget about the pre-show. So like I think it was either yesterday or the day before because I had missed I think the last like 10-15 minutes uh ONL, right? Is
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
ONL? And then I saw the in the beginning. I was like, oh shoot, right, pre-show. So I did like watch a couple of the
Okay.
stuff, like kind of
Well,
skim through it. So
when we go through it, if there's something that we want to watch, we could always screen share and just watch one
yeah,
or two of those together if we decide to. But we'll do that. And there's a couple of headlines that are worth covering too. But let's jump in first and foremost to the big game release of this past week. And that, of course, is
yeah,
Concord. Just kidding.
100%, 100%. Black Myth Concord.
Black Myth Concord. No, we will mention Concord. We've already mentioned it too many times.
Not a lot of
But
people are mentioning it or talking about it,
or
so,
playing it, from what I
or
can tell.
playing.
Black Myth Wukong is out, and this game is smashing records. I believe it is now second all time just on Steam concurrent players. That's not even counting PS5. Let me see if that
Yeah,
still holds true. Man, the 24-hour peak is still 2.2 million, which is crazy.
awesome.
Steam all-time peak is still held by PUBG, but
Damn
it
you,
far
PUBG.
surpassed this year's new champion was Pal World, right? That was like the big
Right.
viral sensation, Pal World. That hit 2.1 million concurrent users on Steam at its all-time peak. Incredible. Passing stuff like Counter-Strike 2 and Lost Ark and Dota 2, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, and so on. Black Myth Wukong passed all of those and Pal World and is now in second place all time with 2.4 million
Yeah.
concurrent unique players at its peak for Steam, which is incredible.
It's
Uh,
the power of Chinese propaganda, Tim. No, I'm just kidding.
that's what it is, yeah. Uh, so yeah, so PUBG still holds the number one spot at 3.2 million. I'm not sure anything is going to break that, but who knows, man? Everything, a few things are inching towards it. This has been a big year for that. Power World and now Black
Yeah.
Myth Wukong.
And a single
Um,
player game too, which I just want to throw that out there. I mean, that's a big
that's
deal.
true. It's so
To me,
okay. So now it is the top peak for a single player game on
right,
Steam, right? So
right. So
there you
that's
go.
pretty cool.
And
That's
that's
pretty
by
cool.
a lot. The next one would be Cyberpunk 2077 at just over 1 million at
Yeah,
its peak, which is incredibly impressive. That game is amazing, and people really flocked back to that with the big update last year. But Black
yeah,
Myth Wukong was like 150% higher than that. That's
that's right,
crazy.
right.
That's crazy. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily equate to game quality. We'll talk about the game here in a second, but just wanted to point out how cool that is that this game is doing so well. It was announced like 5 years ago. It kind of came and went a little bit, got really quiet, and then it was kind of re-announced with Unreal Engine 5 and looked
Yeah,
awesome. But a lot of questions have surfaced and maybe possibly some mistranslations on quotes from certain whatever. Listen, I know there's a lot of hullabaloo around the developers, what was or wasn't said, what culture they're in versus ours, whatever. When it comes down to it, is the game good? Turns out, yeah, the game is good. Did you get it, Dan? Are you playing this game?
it's pretty okay. It's pretty okay. No, I'm just kidding. It's super awesome.
So you're playing it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember first seeing the game because to me, my brain didn't just jump to the it's a Souls game because that's just what everyone does nowadays. You
Right.
see an action game, it's a Souls game. And it's like my brain went to like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising and like that sort of thing. Um, and then when more details started coming out, where it was like there's kind of like a little bit of like DNA of like certain aspects of
Yeah, talk about that real quick.
Souls,
What
but
what pieces of it would you say are like a Souls game?
um, I mean,
You have the shrines that you heal and all the enemies respawn.
sure, but I mean, I feel like other games do that too. So
You
that
have a
it's
healing flask that refills at those things.
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Which I mean, I feel like other games have done that too. Like
I don't
even before
think you lose
Souls,
anything for. I thought you
you
did last week
don't.
when Derek and I were talking about it. I really thought that you did, but you don't lose
Yeah,
anything when you
no, you
die.
don't lose. You don't lose anything.
There's
Um,
no difficulty setting, which is a little bit more from soft like compared to
sure,
others. But again,
sure, sure,
like you
sure.
said, none of these things are unique to Souls games. They're
Right.
just all kind of associated with Souls games.
Well,
There's
that's
bosses that have a big boss health meter that pops up, but that's common
of
in every
course.
game.
That's any action game. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's and they're challenging. The boss fights can be challenging,
they're
but like
tough.
that's
Yeah.
also not a soul specific. So I don't know where like the souls think. I
It's
really do think
about
it's
as loose of
just
a Souls connection as you can get. To be
yeah,
fair, it's probably in the same boat as stuff like Sekiro and even the Jedi games in terms of like, hey, it's got some connections to a Souls. if someone wants to say it's a Souls like, that's fine. But boy, does it not really feel like a FromSoft Souls game to me when I'm playing it
No. Well, I
at
mean, they
all.
could say that to him, but they're not really correct. So I mean,
That's fair. That's totally fair. So, dude, tell me a little bit
um,
about your thoughts on this so far. Like that opening is incredibly epic. It feels like this
dude, yeah,
absolutely insane. I mean, it's a Chinese fantasy game. It's kind of like God of War, but now in a Chinese setting with new characters. You know what I mean? It has that
yeah.
vibe of like cinematic production.
This is
Yeah.
why I like that we're started like with Chinese developers opening up, like these devs are starting to like explore like single player game like with Stellar Blade, for example, coming from a Korean studio. I like
Mm,
these new ideas coming from these new areas where we didn't really get a lot of games from them, and
yeah.
especially in this case because it's Journey to the West, which I mean. It's not a new thing. We've seen, things inspired by. I mean, literally Dragon Ball Z, like Goku, the Saiyan race, the monkey like and with the tails and everything. That's
All
very
the monkey connections in Dragon Ball Z, of course. Yeah.
tied to Journey of the West. But this is like straight up that story in a very high fidelity, like slick action game,
With, by
and
the way, really cool cinematic cutscenes and dialogue, like great voice acting, I think.
yeah, like obviously the characters all have like kind of like I don't know what the word I want to say is, but like cartoony voices because it's like everything's like not human. Or there are some human characters that pop up, but like mostly anthropomorphic type characters, so they have like creature
Yeah.
like voices. You know what I
Well, I
mean?
gotta tell you, right at the beginning, you control a character who is not your main character throughout the game. You control some at the kickoff, kind of the prologue, just to kind of set the tone a little bit of like what's happening, which is really cool. It's an epic showdown, very God of War like.
Yeah,
And your character, as you're attacking and fighting, right away, I was like, dude, this sounds like Bruce Lee. This sounds awesome. Like it
yeah.
sounded
And he's very
so
quick.
cool.
He's just kind of very like snappy back. Like, all right,
Yeah.
listen, I'm gonna
Yeah, he's
kick
got a
your
lot of
ass.
attitude. He's
Yeah,
and but he's doing lots of like "Yee-haw, haw,
yeah,
haw."
like
Like it's real
exactly.
high pitched. Like what's the guy from Mortal Kombat? Not Kung Lao.
Oh, Liu Kang.
Liu
Liu Kang.
Kang. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Bruce Lee basically. Liu Kang, Bruce Lee.
yeah.
It's that to me. It has that vibe, and I think it's so cool. It kind of to me it kind of helps me to dive into that world, that lore. It feels like it's happening there. When you play a God of War game and you're in Greece or in whatever the Nordic countries doing the Norse mythology stuff, everything is like deeper pitched and like tougher
Oh
and
yeah,
heavy.
Vikings are
And
like
this and
Vikings.
this feels like much faster, lightweight. Everything from the voices to the way the combat feels is just like
The
quick and light like a feather. I love it.
the martial arts like kind of like DNA and like
Yeah.
that that like just I don't know that background and that history of again like the whole just leaning into the history of Chinese stories again with Journey of the West. I appreciate that, and I think
Me too.
I do think these other areas countries where we don't get a lot of games from, if they do explore making games like this, like explore their heritage, their backgrounds, like the stories that they have, long or like old stories, like making games out of that, I think are really cool because I'm sure there's so many stories in so many cultures that like we don't know those stories about, but like if they could make a cool video game about it, that would just be really a fun way to explore it. I just
Yep.
think that, I mean, I love games, so why not explore it that way?
Agreed.
So
Totally
yeah.
agree. So how much have you gotten into this? How many hours do you think you've played if you had to guess?
In the second area. So I finished the first area.
Okay.
So I beat that one, and now I'm in the second area. I'm fighting. I don't know if it's the main like final boss of that second area. I feel like it's not. I feel like there's still like a little bit more, but
But it's a
um,
boss.
yeah, it's definitely like a boss. And I was before I came in here, I was fighting him. I probably died 12 times. So, um,
Okay. Oh, it's a Souls like. Got it.
yeah, absolutely. I targeted him, right, and I kind of walked like this, side to side, and then I did attacks.
Oh, it's a
Um,
Zelda like. You didn't tell me. Okay, now I get
right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the main character doesn't really talk, so
that's
so
true.
it is a Zelda.
That's true.
Um, are you still in the first area? Or have you
Oh yeah.
passed the?
Yeah, I
Okay,
haven't gotten a chance to play it as much as I'd like. I'm still pretty early
okay.
on, but I just want to say, and I mentioned this kind of already with the 2070 Super that I am playing it on my current rig. I think this game looks gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
I think it's one of the prettiest games I've ever played that isn't a kind of purely narrative driven game. And I'm not trying to make a shot at, Senua Saga, Hellblade 2, whatever the title is for that. but that is not a full open world explore action
Right.
adventure RPG. It's not that. That is a very narrative focused game with some action moments. So, and that is probably the most, just fidelity wise, like most impressive piece of tech I've seen. As far as this type of game, though, this action adventure RPG with like big landscapes where you can kind of go and explore. I know it's not open world, but open areas, plenty of places to go, things to see, enemies to fight. I mean, I want the next Elden Ring to have this kind of engine. You know what I mean? Like I want it to look like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Elden Ring for sure is like that's open world. Um,
Yes.
but
Yes.
like, yeah, this one is like so the first area that in the beginning is it's more linear. There's definitely more straighter paths and then kind of smaller like kind of like areas. But the second area definitely more
It
open.
opens up a bit. Okay.
And
Okay.
Tim, very high quality, 10 out of 10. You know what's
There's no
one of the
cliffs,
most.
Dan. There's no
Oh, this
cliffs.
cliffs.
Oh
Oh,
my
this
gosh.
cliffs.
Oh, there's
Oh,
so
they
many
cliffs out
cliffs.
the wazoo, Tim. Cliffs out the wazoo. You know what? I'm actually going to coin a new term. I was thinking about this earlier. So
Yeah.
whenever we talk about games that have cliffs,
Yeah.
I want us to decide what is the quality of the cliffage.
Oh, okay.
So instead of cleavage,
Yeah, yeah. So
cliffage.
the cliffage quality in this game, you would give it a.
Yeah, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. So, uh,
Yeah, if we were to do like a
yeah.
tier listing of cliffage, this one's in that S tier of,
It's up there. Yeah, yeah. I
or at
mean,
least at least high A, high A.
Arise is
Yeah.
still, has that like,
Well,
cell
sure.
shady, like nice
Well,
detail.
sure.
It's very unique, but unique cliffage in Arise, but more realistically, yeah, more realistic
Cliffage.
cliffage here. No, but yeah, the game is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Are you
Good
playing on
terrain.
PS5?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just I'm playing on performance because I have turned into one of these 60 frames per second snobs apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're playing on, but
So I'm playing on PC and I am targeting performance. I'm using the
okay.
DLSS technology. I want performance more than quality.
There is
Um,
balance though. There's a balance option, which I
there is
like that.
balance, but I want
I
it,
do
and
like
so
that.
I am hitting 60 usually. I am seeing some dips on the PC, but it never really goes below 40. So I'm not
Yeah,
feeling it really.
sure. Yeah.
So there's been a couple of moments where maybe it's a cinematic or like a change from cinematic into gameplay or whatever. I've noticed a few moments where it stutters for a hot second, and some
Mhm.
of that could be I just don't have the newest rig right now until I get this other one set up. So yeah, I think there's just some pretty understandable, probably patchable things
Yeah.
that'll come through. But
Um,
overall,
I,
my experience has been very smooth.
okay. Yeah, same here. I don't think unless I just missed it because I blinked, I haven't seen any sort of stutters or
Nice.
any issues. So it runs very nice on PS5.
Dude, I'm
So
telling you, this Unreal Engine 5 is something else, man.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty. It's a
yeah, it's
pretty
very
game.
pretty. It's I mean, jokes aside with cliffs and all that, the actual like terrain just very nice detail. The lighting is really just man, like as I'm getting older, that is like things that I'm appreciating more is like lighting in
Yeah.
games, like just the
Yeah.
way that you like enter certain areas, the way like the dark shifts from light, and then vice versa, like it
Yeah.
just kind of like when you walk into a room that's really dark when you just came from somewhere that's light, your eyes need to adjust, right? So
That's
it's
right.
like it gives you that effect of like you go into a darker and you're like, oh, I can't actually see in the game, but then it takes like a second to adjust, and vice versa.
That's
Oh, it's
cool.
suddenly
Yeah.
really bright. So yeah, the lighting is phenomenal. The textures and just like I mean your main character is like his hair just looks awesome. Just
Hmm.
looks really good. You're a monkey dude, so
You're a monkey.
you got to have realistic monkey hair.
Yep.
Um
And that opening section being so like foresty with the way the trees look and the light coming
yes.
down through the trees, like, and I know that's something that if you've watched any of the trailers or previews, that's mostly the setting that you've seen. And so yeah, that's kind of how it opens. That's the opening area, and it delivers, man. It is really good looking.
It's very nice for sure. But then the combat, Tim, the combat what it's about here. That's what this
Yeah.
game is primarily. And like we were, saying earlier, about action games and all that. Yeah, this to me is very much more leaning into speedier combat, like your Devil May Cries.
Hmm.
Um, so you have like a light attack and a heavy attack. Um, and then as the game progresses, you're going to get certain unique abilities. I don't know if you got the magic. You get like magic abilities. Did you get the first one?
I
Where
definitely have the first one. I don't remember if I got the second one yet or not. I haven't played it yesterday or today yet, so it's been a. But yeah, I definitely got the first one, the freezing time one. But
yeah,
at the opening, you get to try a couple different ones. So in the
right.
opening, you have a few open to you. Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of have a little bit of a god mode there just to have a little fun in the beginning, which is
Yep.
fun. But yeah, there's also with the heavier attacks, you can charge up. You have like a focus. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. And so you have stamina and focus, which at first is a little confusing, but then it makes sense once you start playing it.
it's the stamina, you're feeding off of stamina just to simply do the attacks. Focus is built into the triangle on PlayStation. So if you hold it, you can charge it up. And there's different stances too. So if you actually go into your skills tree,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
there's different stances that you can unlock once you unlock that first little thing in each stance. So there's three stances.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's like the piercing, right? Thrust and something.
there's like there's the first one which is like a bash, and then there's thrust, and then there's the one where you like stand up on the pole. He stands up on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay.
Which looks awesome. It looks
Yeah.
really cool.
It's again Journey to the West. The whole thing is his weapon
Yeah.
extends.
Well, if you guys ever played Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which was such a cool game, of course that character is very almost monkey-like, and his name
Yeah.
is Monkey, I think, in that game.
That's good.
And he uses that staff, and he does those types of moves all the time.
Yep. Um, so yeah, you got the different stances, which you can do different types of moves. So basically the focus charging up is going to do different things with each of those stances, which is fun. And you can switch on the fly with the D-pad, so it's left, up, and right is designated to each stance.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if I actually want to say this because I don't know if you've fought and have you collected any sort of like unique souls to do anything with in the game yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
You'll hit a point where you'll fight like a mini boss, and I think it'll have like a blue flame effect like over the body when it like dissipates.
Okay.
Unlock a new thing that you can do.
Cool.
Which
Okay.
is so uh,
Yeah, I really only played it for maybe an hour, hour and a half total, something like that. And a lot of that was spent just kind of like looking around and kind of messing around. I didn't even get to the first main boss yet. I fought a few of the smaller like in-world bosses that you can stumble upon and fight. I fought them, but no like clear end of area epic bosses yet.
okay. I
So
think
I'm still very, very early.
there was I'm trying to think of how many like actual like bosses, but aside from like the very final one of the whole area, which then you get like the thing of that area, but it was
Okay.
either two or three, and then in between there's like the mini bosses.
Yeah.
I think the whole game has like 91 bosses or something. I saw
Hmm.
I saw a number in some headline. I swear it said like 91 in the whole
That's a
game.
lot
So
of bosses if that's what it is.
yeah. Um, but you do bump into quite a few of them, just like kind of in between as you're progressing through the areas and down the paths. They'll just be kind of the meter will pop up on the bottom. They'll have a name. Um, yeah, so that's fun because it adds a little bit of extra difficulty in there. Even though some of the enemies can throw you off because you're having to learn their patterns. I guess that Souls like learn their patterns, right? Which is it's not. I'm being a wise
It's a
guy.
Souls-like again, guys. We're
Yeah,
back.
um, but yeah, some of the enemies can definitely have a little bit of a weird pattern to them. So kind of like take a step back and like pay attention to what they're doing and do your dodges and all that. The only thing that's actually a little weird that feels a little weird to me, Tim, is there's no block. There's no block in the game.
Yeah, it's very Bloodborne-like, right? Where it's focusing on the dodging.
Yeah. So you're doing it's all dodge. You're
Hmm.
dodging. If you dodge right at the last second, there's like a copy of you, like where you were standing when you dodged. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did notice that right away. Like even in that first fight, I noticed that. I was like, "Hey, that's
So
cool."
you swing around like the enemy, but like a image of you is still there, so they think that's where you are. So it's cool, kind of like a visual indicator, like, oh, I just dodged that like perfectly. That's sick.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the
Yeah.
combat is very fun.
And it's very
it's
rewarding. It kind of lets you know how well you're doing with things like that, the perfect dodges and the way you can
yeah,
land those attacks. It's not always easy to land your heavy attacks. It's not the kind of thing where in some games
no,
where it's just a heavy attack is slightly slower and hits a little
yeah.
harder. Like it truly is like a charged up thing. I'm sure that changes as you unlock other skill trees, but for right now, at least at the beginning, it felt more like, all right, I need to be purposeful about this heavy attack. I need to really try to time it in a smart way. But
That is the case with all of them because like
okay.
for example the thrust one, because you as you're building it up in the skill tree, the bow the staff gets longer, so it kind of gives you the ability
Hmm,
to stretch out further.
that's
So
cool.
if you're too far away, so you do want to be like preparing of how like where you're standing and how close you are to the enemy, but also then if you're too close and that enemy like lunges at you, then it's like then you just kind of like lost your chance to use that move. So you
Yep.
do, but yeah, you do have to
I've
plan.
wasted it. I've wasted it a couple times, and I'm kind of like, to me, that's the kind of thing that you learn in games like this. Really in any game, even the games like The Witcher or whatever else, you kind of just learn like, oh, that was a waste. Okay, I'm not going to do that next time. You just kind of like figure out how the game wants you to use its abilities and its and all that kind of stuff. So, are you still digging the story as the story progresses? Are they still telling the story through interesting characters and cutscenes? So far, I've met some colorful characters along the way already.
It's just yeah, like there's that there's like a little dude that pops up, right? A
Uh-huh.
little dude who has like all these weird like roots,
Yeah,
almost looks like
he's like Krillin, who's been dead for a while or something.
it's cool that has like a vegetable growing out of his and all the
Yeah,
roots. Um,
yeah. But
yeah,
he's
it's just
funny.
kind of
Like
like
he already had a couple of moments. I was like, ah, that's kind of funny, you know?
he's just like a weird, quirky little like spirit thing that's just like, hey, like some stuff's happening and you got to do the thing,
And here's
and
how
then
to do a thing, and here's a magic move. See ya.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
then he just disappears, like into a puff of smoke. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that's just kind of the vibe overall of the story is like just
yeah.
all these like unique, like right when you open it up in the second area, there's an individual that's like strumming on some kind of it's not a guitar obviously, but I don't know what the instrument would be called. It's probably some ancient Chinese guitar instrument that has a name that I don't know what the name is. Singing in Chinese, which is very unique, very very unique, but it's actually kind of like catchy in like a very like odd, quirky way.
I
But
love that.
that's kind of I was kind of like bopping my head. I was like, oh, this is like weird, but I really like it. This is really cool.
That's
And also
cool.
the character very unique looking. So like when you see them, you're like, okay, yeah, like I all
Huh.
right. Like my wife was like, oh, is that like what's going on there? Like she noticed the thing about that character that
Interesting.
so yeah, it's just the imagery is just so cool.
Yeah.
The
Very
bosses
strong
look
art
really cool.
design in addition to being technically impressive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think the only thing I think the only thing that I am like, oh, like that's annoying so far is that particular thing that I mentioned about the spirit.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna get a spirit and then it's gonna unlock a new type of thing you can do. The buttons to trigger it are L2 and R2, but like when you hold R2, that's when it brings up like being able to do your magic, right? And use items. So like
Yes.
it's weird because it's like you're hitting, but like basically I'll go to hit them the triggers like it's telling me to, and it just doesn't register sometimes, which is really
Oh.
annoying. So like I'm trying to time the thing that I'm using, and it just doesn't happen.
Is there options to remap any of that stuff? I haven't even
They
looked.
have there's different control types. I think there's only two, which
Okay,
is
so
annoying.
not
I
like
wish
custom remapping, but just a couple of
right.
schemes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I just kept it on the default one. So yeah, that's really the only thing where I'm like, oh, that's annoying because it's like I wanted to do this right at this moment. I was trying to time it. So I think it something like that is important in an action game, especially a fast action game. When you're trying to like do an ability. But I mean, other than that, really, I'm there's nothing about this game where I'm like, I don't like this. Like the game's challenging and that can be frustrating
Do you
sometimes,
like
but
the Stellar Blade comparisons people have been making to it? Do you think it makes sense, or does it is it way different than that experience?
it's definitely different. Yeah, I think the way Eve controls and all of the movements are definitely different for sure. But yeah, like it's I would say Stellar Blade is definitely more of a hybrid. I think it definitely leans more into the Souls stuff, just not a ton. It again, that's why when I would talk about that game, I call it more of a hybrid. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I do like the I do like these games like I said, that do borrow inspiration from other genres and including Souls. I think more of that is fun.
Yeah,
It's not just we don't have to fully lean into this is exactly like a Souls game, but we're putting like a different theme over it, so to speak. Just
yeah,
like take some ideas, mix in some other things from other genres. I think that's really fun. So
agreed.
yeah,
Yeah, man. So I've only played it for a little bit. I'm very much looking forward to playing it on my new setup. Hopefully, maybe as early as tomorrow, but could be later this week. We'll see when it's, time to make the switch over to the new PC. But yeah, very, very impressed with this game. Um, so go get it if you haven't yet. It's selling like crazy. People are playing it a lot. So that
and
is that is good. Single player games are alive and well, companies.
that's right.
So look at Hogwarts Legacy. Look at this. Look at the God of War games. Look at all those single player games that are just crushing it. Like all it has to be is a good game. You don't have to just write off a whole genre or setup because it didn't sell super well. You just make it really good, and it's going to be
Yeah.
undeniable. So there you
You
go.
don't have to attach online stuff or games as a service or season passes or
Yep.
whatever. Just make a whole game.
And they even did like a deluxe edition. Like you get this extra stuff and you get
Yeah,
whatever. Like that's fine. Do that. Do the deluxe edition stuff, but
yeah.
don't try to nickel and dime us along the way with all these like subscribe and whatever. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
gross.
there's no like extra currency in this game that I can go spend
Yep.
money on to go get some stuff I don't need. You know what I mean?
And honestly, that's a lesson for Ubisoft. And don't get me wrong, I am very hyped for Shadows, the Assassin's Creed game. Can't wait to play in that universe, in that world. But Ubisoft is absolutely guilty of that. Like you in a single player game, like they want you to spend all their Ubi bucks or whatever they call them. You know what I mean? Like they want the
Yeah.
coins and stuff. Yeah, it's still now. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes the stuff they have on there is freaking awesome. Like some of it looks
Yeah.
so cool. The designs on the
Oh,
extra
sure.
stuff they roll out, but it's pretty nefarious to charge for that at least at the rate that they do. So I'm really glad, as of right now, at least, Black Myth Wukong is kind of changing that approach. So love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of the new games did come out this week that are worth just mentioning out loud. Yes, Concord did actually launch this week. It's been out in beta and stuff, and it is out. The general reviews on it are very kind of meh. It's getting anywhere from, you know what? Let's look it up on OpenCritic real quick. I've seen a lot of like 6 and 7 average. Let me see if that's actually the average now.
I was hoping for their sake it would at least review well, because everyone was already crapping on it.
It is
So it's
currently, doesn't have too many reviews yet, but it is currently at a
okay.
65 average. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not amazing. I
Well,
don't
that
know if
studio is shutting
personally
down.
I don't know if it's personally let's fire everybody realm, but what do I know?
Oh, that's that. They're all not going to
They're
have
gone.
jobs in a
Yeah, they're
few
gone.
months. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not.
Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody. So anyway, that is out. There's a game out called Dustborn, which I mentioned last week with Derek. It's kind of a narrative adventure action game. Cool art style. Don't know. The game itself is getting pretty mediocre reviews. Again, another 7 and 7s, but the art style does look cool, and it's telling kind of a future of America story. I think, you know, if you're offended by any kind of potentially progressive storyline of whatever, I think that's
Hmm.
in there. So just
Oh,
watch
I
yourself.
remember this one.
I think
Yeah.
it looks really cool though. So whether or not it's good, I
Well,
don't
Tim, it's
know.
got a black lead, female lead, so it's a DEI game or do
It's
whatever
it's
the
a DE
dumb
woke
acronym.
or whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
Uh, Mika and the Witch's Mountain is out. That looks kind of fun. But that reminds me, I need to play this one that I keep hearing about. Gaston and many others are talking about the Dungeons of the Hinterlands or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I need to play that one. I think it's on Game Pass. I got to give it a try. But Mika and the Witch's Mountain looks like a good time too.
Oh, I remember this one too. It gave me Kiki's Delivery Service
Dude,
vibes, which
yes. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Ghibli
So this one
movie.
looks very charming. I don't know if it's any fun, but it looks charming. There's a really cool one that I've got on my wish list. I am gonna buy it at some point and try it when I'm in the kind of like isometric action mood. But it's called Cybercore or Cybercorp. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's got like a 92% positive on Steam user
Oh,
reviews. It looks like a lot of fun. It's like an isometric action looter shooter in a
okay.
cyberpunk setting. It looks
You
super
said some
fun.
words there at the end there, Tim. You said some things. You said
Looter
looters.
shooter, cyberpunk, isometric action. Any of those
The
getting
looter
to you?
shooter, I'm like, wow. But
Yeah, yeah.
but this actually does look cool. I
It does
like
look
the way
fun.
this looks. It looks
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. And like when a looter shooter has like, hey, there's some really fun drops, like a Borderlands style thing, then I'm on board. But sometimes I don't really like it. It just depends.
Guns
Um,
got to shoot good too. If you're gonna have
they
like a
gotta
million
shoot good.
millions
Yeah,
of guns, you gotta have some good shooty guns. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Another new game out this week that I played the demo for is Tactical Breach Wizards. That game is super cool. It's these really small, and I'm sure as you progress in the game, the areas get larger, but these little small rooms, and you are literally like breaching in and then going. You have it's like a really fast-paced but turn-based kind of
Okay.
strategy game.
Yeah.
And it's what it sounds like. You are wizards. You have powers. You can either see into the future and kind of see like, hey, if I do this move, here's what'll play out. Let me rewind and try that again. You've got a few other powers too. You can kind of like push enemies back with these shock powers and stuff. So you're wizards, but it's also kind of a modern day-ish setting where there's like police departments and there's guns and like you are raiding this cargo ship at the beginning, and trying to help someone who's been taken hostage. So it's kind of a modern day meets wizardry thing. The style is pretty cool. I like the style of this game, and the gameplay is pretty fun. So, and it's got great user reviews on Steam. So Tactical Breach Wizards is a good time if you want kind of a somewhat, it's weirdly fast paced for a tactical game. But it's not like you have to have fast reaction time. You can sit there and
Mhm.
wait and look and read just like you do in any tactical game. But it just
But
does, it can move fast. So
yeah, having a I mean, I think adding adding like speed to like turn-based games or strategy
yeah.
turn-based games is a nice little touch because that's kind of sometimes that's like the thing that prevents
Mhm.
people from playing these games. They're just like, oh, it's
That's
too
right.
slow and blah blah, and it's like, well, yeah, if you kind of speed it up, but you're still having that element of strategy and having to
Yep.
think about things, and
I think it's super fun. Like I will absolutely buy this game. I think it's going to be a fun one on Steam Deck. I don't think it's um, verified for the Steam Deck yet. I think there were some controller things they're still working out. But anyway, if it is, or whenever it is, if it's not yet, this is absolutely one that'd be great on the Steam Deck. And also the writing is really fun. Like there's little conversations as you're standing by the door ready to breach in, and you
yeah,
can pick some of the dialogue depending on who the main character is in that scene, which by the way, it kind of changes in the demo scenes. So the guy who's your main character at the beginning, he becomes kind of the other person, and you're this younger girl character talking to him. So anyway, and you kind of pick the dialogue. It's super clever and kind of
hmm,
quippy. It's like lighthearted, but there's still like a storyline happening where something happening happens towards the beginning, and now that character is a villain as you get to the future missions. So you're trying to figure out what happened, what made them so evil, or whatever. Like it's interesting. Like I think it's a cool little game. So
yeah. It's funny because it's like the old like gruffy Santa beard dude. He's got like camo, but then
he's
he kind
awesome.
like sort of a wizard hat, like, but then
Yep.
he's got like a rifle in his hand. It's just
Yep.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the quippiness starts out as pretty standard. Like if you were to watch like a squad army movie, and you've got guys kind of like they're kind of introducing the audience to like uh if someone says, "Do you want me to leave you in any for you?" Like, "Oh, are you losing your touch? You can't take them all yourself." Like
Yeah.
that kind of a quippiness with like a army squad.
And
But it does grow beyond that to like you learn like, oh, there's some lore here. There's some interesting stuff with the magic in this kind of modern day setting. That's cool. So yeah, I like that game. Um, all right, I think that's it for new games. Black Myth Wukong, of course, is the absolute spotlight. This is 100% a game of the year contender. It is right now sitting right along the top of visuals alone, but also with the combat feels amazing already to me early on. And hearing what Dan's saying, I feel like it's only going to get better
yeah.
in my experience. And yeah, this is one of those games that's like, yeah, we're going to be talking about this one in December or January. So for sure. But by the way, speaking of Game Awards, which are now confirmed for December 12th, I think. So sorry to you games that are coming out after November, whatever it is. Too bad for you. You're
Like,
too bad. I still think he should host that thing at the end of December or beginning of January. I don't understand it, but it's
at
fine.
this point, he's doing it out of spite. He's just doing it out of spite.
Yeah, maybe there could be a lot more moving pieces. I've never planned a big event like that with that many moving pieces, but part of me goes, you have enough sway now? You could just say, "Hey guys, this is now the first week of January, so we can include the entire year." Like
You would think. I mean, it is like his show,
I
right?
feel
But
like he could do that.
good.
Whatever. So that's confirmed. But their last main event, the Keeley event, he's got 3 events a year right now, and he's got other times where he'll host and he'll like show up and do other things. But his big three are, of course, the Game Awards, and then you got Summer Games Fest Live, which has now become like the new E3 because E3 doesn't exist anymore. And we've got Gamescom ONL, which has been going on now for a good 7 years or so, maybe 8. So that's been happening for a while. And that happened this past week. Now, this was such a crazy busy week for me with family, but especially with work. There was so much work happening. So I didn't get to watch it live as it streamed, but I did catch up with it later on. And just like Dan mentioned, watched the pre-show as well. So there's some pre-show stuff with Kyle Boss, which I liked. I like his sense of humor too. I like his dry delivery. I like when he does his top 10 and then turns to the side camera to like
Yeah.
give his like I just kind of like his personality.
It feels homey because he's literally doing it out of
He's
his
doing it at
out of
home. It
his
kind of
space. Yeah.
he feels like a
So,
buddy who just has a silly sense of humor and it's
oh
easy to
yeah,
watch him,
100%. Dude,
you
I
know.
freaking love Kyle. Like
Yeah.
he's just so weird. He's just like a weird dude. Not our Kyle. I mean, we're all
Yeah,
quirky.
but you know what? We love him because he's also weird, just like you and me are weird. And
Sure.
yeah, but yeah, Bossman totally feels like the kind of guy that I would know in real life and be like, that guy's he's a riot, man. Like
Yeah.
he's something. So we'll go over some of those announcements, some of those trailers just real quick. There weren't too many, but there's a few, and then the main show as well. And if there's any, Dan, that you're like, I didn't see that yet. What's this? We could bring it up if you want to. I'll let you decide if you want to pull it up on YouTube, share. We could watch it if there's one or two that you want to, but we don't have to do that. And yeah, we'll go from there. But let's jump into the pre-show announcements first from ONL. We know that Dave the Diver has already had some really cool DLC packs and some add-ons. They've done some cool things with Godzilla and I think a few other IPs. Well, they've got more coming up with other, more specifically, kind of indie devs, which I think is a cool way for indie devs to support each other. I think one was a content creator, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, they had Balatro and Potion Craft were the two games that I recognized
Okay.
as being like DLC add-ons that are on the way, which is really cool.
Interesting.
I love Dave the Diver, man. That game is so
So
cool.
we're gonna be diving for decks of cards. Like what even
Yeah,
is
you'll have to watch the trailer to see like what they were pulling up. I was taking notes while watching it, so I actually didn't see the specifics. I just saw the Balatro stuff pop up, and it looked like he. I think it's a game. If there's a part in Dave the Diver where you get to a little
Oh,
village and they
yeah,
have
yeah.
games. I think Balatro is a
Okay.
game there now or a version of it.
Gotcha.
I don't know if it's more than that. And Potion Craft, I think, has more to do with recipes and maybe getting certain ingredients for something. But I
Sure.
could be wrong. There could be more to it than that, but I think those are kind of the two additions
Okay.
of those two
Interesting.
things. We got a trailer for Sniper Elite Resistance, which is coming out in 2025. Now, I don't remember if I've ever played Sniper Elite. I know I did play some sniper game. What's the sniper games
There's a
that I
few
play?
sniper elites, right? It's that series. I'm pretty sure. The last one was like 5, I think.
Is it just not being numbered anymore then? Yeah, Sniper
Yeah,
Elite 4 was the last one I played.
was the last one? Okay.
Wait, did I play this game?
It's where you shoot them in the nuts and it shows the their testes exploding, right?
Oh no, I did play Sniper Elite 5, just not on Steam.
Okay.
Maybe that could have been on Game Pass, but I know I played some of it.
Yeah.
I might have even finished it. But anyway, those are like World War II, get out there and go snipe things. You can do like you can kind of play it Hitman style. You can go run and gun a little more if you want. I like those games. They're definitely kind of double A, verging on triple A levels of quality, but they're good. And now we got Sniper Elite Resistance, which looks like
I
another
mean,
fun World War
it's
II
still
game.
going, so good for them because I feel like the series has actually been around for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
So
A lot of great bundles out there during sales where you can get like 7 of the Sniper games or whatever.
sure.
So, um, there's a game called Begone Beast. It's a 4-player isometric co-op horror action game. Kind of gave me vibes of
Okay.
Five Nights at Freddy's meets Fall Guys, just in terms of its visuals, the way it looked, and the way they would scream and kind of like funnily run around as these super creeper things are coming after them. But it looks like a pretty fun co-op horror action game coming out
Oh,
in February.
that thing's creepy. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely creepy.
there's some creepy stuff mixed with some. It looks like horror comedy, maybe. I don't know if comedy is the right thing. Maybe the characters just look kind of funny, but
Yeah, they look a little like sort of cutish, right? I mean, they
well, they
kind of
also
have like
scream
area.
nonstop as they're running, which kind of was
Oh, okay.
funny in the trailer. They were screaming a lot in the trailer,
Okay.
but it wasn't just screaming. Like their mouths were huge in this cartoony way, and they were like going ah, like it was very
All right.
silly.
Yeah,
So it's horror, truly creepy stuff, but also kind of silly too.
that's
I'm
fun.
pretty sure Five Nights at Freddy's has a bit of a comedy element to its horror, but I don't know for sure. I thought it did.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
Gotta ask them kids. The kids
Gotta
love
ask those
themselves
kids.
Five
I
Nights.
know. I know. Roadcraft. So Focus Interactive is making a road building sim called Roadcraft.
Oh,
The idea, the quote unquote story they're putting around it is that something devastating happened. I can't tell if it was a flood in a specific area or some larger world-ending event or something, but you're rebuilding destroyed roads and bridges and stuff, and it's just a sim game around that called Roadcraft coming out next
So
year.
like just building roads,
Building
not
roads, man. Well,
building
it looked a
anything
little bit
else.
like a combination of construction simulators and those Mud
Okay.
Runner games, or like the 18-wheeler games where you gotta like just make your way through. There was even like, is there like an Ice Road Truckers game too?
Sure.
It
Sure.
just kind of
Yeah.
had some of those vibes where you're going off road. I think the Mud Runner maybe was one of them. It kind of just had that vibe, but you're also building roads. So I don't know.
Okay.
Listen, as someone who really does enjoy a sim game from time to time, I'm not here to judge. That one just doesn't look like
It's just funny when it's like such a
one for me.
specific thing as opposed to being like, hey, you can like repair the roads, but also like the town around it and stuff. It's just like, nah, you're just rebuilding roads. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Okay,
touch
so
me.
we also have Nico Dorico. It's this kind of a mascot platformer. Looks like Donkey Kong Country a lot. So Nico Dorico, the Magical World, very strong Donkey Kong Country, and a little bit of Crash, but clearly inspired by DKC, in my opinion.
Oh, I saw Gaston shared this, right? Obviously.
Yeah, it comes out in October. Um, yeah, looks really charming. Looks really wholesome.
Oh, I
So
mean, literally the character you're playing as looks like a taller, like with like a mohawky long hair version of Crash. Like this has Gaston written all over it.
it does. It's got. I think it's more DKC, but I didn't grow up playing nearly
Okay.
as much
Well,
Crash.
side scrolling,
But
I was just talking about the design of the
the
main
character
character.
design is very Crash. Yes, absolutely, agree with that.
But, yeah,
We saw
definitely
another
side
trailer
scrolling.
for Anotria: The Last Song, which comes out September 19th. There's this other one. Remember the game Haven, where you're this kind of couple who is stranded on this
Yes. Yeah,
planet.
yeah. I
Really,
never played it, but yeah.
dude, that's a really cool, stylish game. You and Renee might actually enjoy playing it
Yeah.
together.
I've wanted to play it. I just kept forgetting.
Because gameplay wise and combat wise, it's very limited. It's there, but it's much more about exploring, and it's much more about the story, like those two's relationship as it kind of grows and changes, and you learn more details about where they came from and why they left. And I think it's a really cool game. So anyway, that
Yeah.
company made a game called Cairn, Cairn.
Okay.
It looks a lot like the climbing one, Jusant, from last year or from 2 years ago, whenever that one was.
Jusant.
Yeah, so it's very much that where you're like climbing up and your physics based, so your arms and legs look a little
Okay.
funny as you're moving. Like it's got that kind of
Yep, yep.
realistic climbing look to it. There's this horror farming game, and they interviewed this dev for this too. It's a game called
Oh.
We Harvest Shadows, and it looks really creepy, but also you are legitimately like doing a farming sim, kind of.
Oh, dude. I mean, that sounds that sounds
Yeah,
like a fun combination.
yeah. He
That
called
sounds
it a uh farming, no, a horror farming allegory, I think is what the dev called it. I think that's a really cool way to put it, but that one looks
okay.
interesting. We Harvest Shadows.
Okay.
A horror VR game called Ayla, which does look creepy. Revenge of the Savage Planet was a hilarious trailer. I never played Journey to the Savage Planet. I think I might have fired it up once, but it didn't really click for
Oh, is
me.
this a sequel?
It's a sequel, and it looks so freaking. The trailer was so funny for this.
Okay.
There were a couple other trailers that made me chuckle during this event, and that
Nice.
was one of them. There's a game called Inzoi, which is like Sims if it had really good
Dude,
graphics.
I watched like like a full 12-minute thing of this. Like, God, dude, if they can execute on this, like
Yeah,
Sims is dead. Like
it's
as
a
far as
really
I'm
pretty
concerned.
version of it's a life sim game where like if you liked Sims, it looks like you can do most of that stuff. It remains to be seen if it'll be fun to play, but it sure does look good
Well,
for
like
a sim game.
it just looks like the video I was watching was actually breaking down like this is I don't know if you remember like me mentioning like a game like GTA, but like with the scope of like giving every NPC literally like a life. Like you could literally follow an NPC to like work and like you're like, oh look, they're working at like the post office or whatever. And then like if you waited in the game a certain amount of hours, then they drive home and they actually go in
Mm.
their house. Like they kind of like basically are saying that that's what's going to be going on here. Like the NPCs literally have like the AI intelligence like built whatever like they're going around they're doing specific there's like a whole town you can actually customize like the entire town and
Dude,
like
that's pretty crazy.
and it actually like legit looks really
Yeah.
cool. Almost overwhelming, but you know. Yeah.
Well, dude, you should check out. Yeah, you can come in. Sorry, my son's coming in to give me a USB.
Yeah, make sure it's.
Ah,
Okay. Wait, this is a different one?
Yeah, because I don't think the last one.
Hang on, everybody. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't think the last one was big enough. It was only 7.5 gigs, and it was having some issue. It must have been really old or something.
Okay.
But I just formatted that one and then brought it up.
All right, I'll try it. We're trying to get Windows installed, people.
Oh, is that the Windows USB?
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. You can leave my door kind of cracked a little bit there. All right. Thanks for the pause, everybody. This is life of a parent. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to get Windows installed on the new PC.
Oh, did it not go through?
Yeah, I guess the USB I gave him needed to be formatted, and it was like there was something wrong with it. It was too small or something. Anyway, I need the USB. He just gave me one that's bigger that I can format and try it again. There's a game called Tribe 9, which I recommend looking up. It looks really cool. It's got this anime style to it. I'm gonna look it up too, so I can be reminded of exactly what it looks like. But it looks to me, it looked. Oh, it's a free game though. Ooh, don't know.
Well, so
don't know.
immediately I'm like, oh, this looks like the guys that do Danganronpa, and then I'm seeing some screenshots where it's showing some Danganronpa. They're mentioning Danganronpa. So
but I just liked the mixture of like pixelated graphics, and then it would jump to like these cool anime fight scenes. So I have no idea if this game's any good. Being free to play is always a red flag for me personally, just on a personal level. But yeah. That game's coming out. And then the last one they showed during pre-show was Directive 8020, a Dark Pictures game, which of course is a sci-fi horror game in the Dark Pictures universe, starring this actress who I've seen in a whole bunch of things. I know she was in Matilda as well. I think she was she the villain from Obi-Wan too? She might have been.
I don't know. She was what's her face? Something Rambo in Miss Marvel.
That's what it was. It wasn't no, not Star Wars. I think let me just double check. She's in Miss Marvel, but she was in the thing that I recognize her from because our family's watched it a number of times is the new Matilda, the musical that was on Netflix.
Gotcha.
So she was in that. But yeah, she was in the Miss Marvel movie. Yeah.
I didn't realize this was Dark Picture Anthology though, because I actually I caught like the full trailer of this at the end as I was skimming through, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, like a sci-fi thing. It was almost giving me like whatchamacallit. Damn it, why can't I suddenly remember?
I was thinking Dead Space when I first saw it, but
the PS5 game, the procedurally generated sci-fi shooting.
Oh, Returnal?
Yes, thank you. Jesus Christ, I couldn't remember Returnal. It was almost giving me a little bit of that. Because like suddenly she's like standing in the room and then like a version of her like comes in. So like it was giving me like that spooky vibe.
Yeah, so like psychological. Her name is Lashana Lynch. She was in the Marvels. Yes, she's Maria Rambeau. She was in Matilda the musical. I was wrong. She's not the one from Obi-Wan. Sorry. That thing for some reason that's why I pictured her face in Star Wars too, but she's not been in Star Wars.
Cool. I didn't know they were doing more.
But yeah, she was in Matilda and she was great. And she's a good singer too, by the way. In Matilda the musical, she sings and girl can sing.
Nice.
All right, so that's a new Dark Pictures game that's coming out. Let's get to the main show. We jumped to like a big room. I love hearing people clap and respond to stuff. That's one thing I always do like about that. Please clap. I do like when the crowd like kind of live responds to things that are being announced or revealed or whatever. When someone comes on stage,
like the good old days, Tim, with E3.
I do like that. Yeah, I do like that. So real quick, I'll just read off a bunch of games that got updated trailers or details that I don't think we need to dive into unless there's something that jumps out to you that you want to at least mention. But I'm just going to read a list real quick of the stuff that got updated trailers or new details or maybe had more things talked about with them, but we've already known they exist. We've got Black Myth Wukong, of course. They showed us launch trailer. Dragon Ball Spark Zero. There's a game called King of Meat, which is some kind of multiplayer online game that's been announced already, but it's a hilarious title. But that got another trailer. Call of Duty Black Ops 6, of course, got a pretty long deep dive where they did some gameplay of that. It looks like Call of Duty. Yeah. Space Marine 2 got a new trailer.
Dude, that game looks freaking awesome.
Looks super cool. Comes out in just a couple of weeks, I think. Or is it out sooner? I think it's in September, right? Yeah.
Was it Space Marine 2?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like September 13th. No, September 9th? No, I can't remember. 13th. Is it 13th?
Dude, I just need the day. Why can't you just tell me, Google? September 9th. September 9th.
9th. Okay. We got a game called Predecessor, which does look pretty cool as well. We heard more about Monster Hunter Wilds. Mecha Break, which was announced during the Summer Games Fest, which is, of course,
that game looks fun.
That game looks like a lot of fun. Civilization 7 got a whole bunch of attention and some details thrown in there. Marvel Rivals got talked about. Age of Mythology Retold, which if you like strategy kind of RTS games, that looks really fun. Towerborn, if you are a Castle Crashers fan, as my family is, that's one that's worth giving a look.
Okay.
Delta Force Hawk Ops, which I believe they're doing the Black Hawk Down story for their campaign. They showed a little more of that. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which was recently delayed till February, but it got a cool trailer. That game does look interesting. I couldn't really get into the way the first one felt to play. Maybe the
Yeah.
second one will do it. The medieval setting is just so cool, though.
Yeah.
Zenless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, those got some more content and some new stuff added. Hey, if you're into those games, they're supporting them, man. So you can keep spending money over there. Batman Arkham Shadow. Being in VR as Batman, I'm sure is fun. I'm just not a VR person for long-term gaming
I almost
sessions.
feel like it'd be disorienting. You flipping around like Batman, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this.
Yeah, I want more
can't do
Arkham
this.
games, and I just want them to be normal. That's all I want.
Yes, normal.
So, Little Nightmares 3 got another trailer. It was already announced, but we got to see some stuff there. And then Arena Breakout Infinite, which I don't have anything to say about. I don't know anything about it. Okay, so that was just kind of a fast forward through some of the updates, just to save us a little time. We don't have to talk about all the things. But here's the other stuff. And by the way, some of these have already been announced. I just thought they were worth calling out a little more than the other ones, just because there's a little more either new information or whatever. Or I just forgot to add it to that first list. Could have been that too. All right. So Borderlands 4 got a teaser. We kind of knew this was happening. Randy Pitchford had already worn a shirt or something that said the number 4, or he tweeted out something with the word 4. He did the same thing with 3. He kind of just had the number 3 on, maybe that's when he had it on the jacket. But anyway, it said Borderlands 4 2025. That's all we know.
Well, people are really hankering for some more Borderlands. So, especially the movie.
Yeah, they're like, hey, this movie really did well. Let's go ahead and announce our game. I gotta tell you, Randy and team, next time hold that one closer to the vest until the game's actually ready to be shown and released. That way it can be a fun surprise announce release later.
Yep.
Now's not the time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you should probably just hunker down.
You should have just held on to it till you're like, I don't know, under a year from it actually releasing, and then announce it. And here's the release date. That would have been epic. But nope, you gave us a generic 2025 with nothing but the title. Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Oh boy. We got a hilarious trailer from Goat Simulator Remastered. I highly recommend watching it. I thought it was very funny.
I don't even know how I missed that.
Like they have this whole prison with all these different art styles of old games where you're like stuck in this remastered jail and stuff like that. It's very funny. But then the goat, of course, shows up with his tongue hanging out, and they're doing Goat Simulator Remastered. Looks very silly. Very funny.
These guys know what they're doing. They literally are just masters of their craft, so much so that they skipped the second game. The second game.
When they announced 3, that was just like, this is perfect for this stupid game. But yeah, I really did think that was just a funny trailer from people who clearly like video games and are just having a good time.
Yeah.
There's a DLC that now has turned into a full-on spin-off standalone game called Dying Light: The Beast. And this cinematic and apparent what looked to me like gameplay trailer, they've said I think it's a bit of a smaller adventure, but it is I think like Lost Legacy or First Light, from those games, as could have been. I guess First Light was DLC, but Lost Legacy was standalone, right? I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So think something more in that vein, where it's like a $40, or even like Assassin's Creed Mirage, where it's like a smaller slice of a fuller universe. So anyway, it does look really cool. It looks like a lot more Dying Light, creepy gameplay. The opening at first, I was like, what game is this? And I saw Techland. I was like, is Dying Light 3? Like, what is that?
Like, are you guys already doing the third one?
Yeah. So it's just a spinoff of that second one. So
interesting choice to do a spinoff.
Well, I think it was planned to be DLC, but it just kind of grew to be big enough to be its own standalone game. And I've seen some early hands-on previews of it, saying, yeah, this should have been its own standalone game. This is really fun. Like apparently it stands on its own pretty well.
I'm here for it.
There's a really cool looking game called Linked Banner of the Spark. They came out and talked about this. The developers did. They were very nervous, but that kind of gave us a little bit of charm too, where they were just like nervous and excited about sharing their game. It's a new studio called FuzzyBot, and this game comes out October 22nd. Very stylish isometric action and building game. So you do a lot of building, but also a lot of action. I think Linked Banner of the Spark looks like a lot of fun. I like the vibe of it. Kind of reminds me of something you'd see from a spin-off of a League of Legends story, kind of a game.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but I like the way that one looks.
Artistically, like not as like or at least the art anyways of it. Not like in game, but just the art of it is kind of reminding me a little bit of Hi-Fi Rush. It's just very colorful and just kind of like
a little Saturday morning
just a little bit.
cartoon touch to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally get that. Lost Records is this new game from Don't Nod, which we already had announced, but this mysterious narrative adventure looks like very much kind of like I got Stand By Me, but with girls vibes to it a little bit. As they're kind of remembering back and like relationships, friendships, who hurt who, whatever, and they were in a band together and they played video games together and they had a fort and whatever. And then things are much more serious now. And then all of a sudden, there's this mysterious box that arrives that only one of them would know, like the thing that's written. Like, it looks really cool. I'm intrigued already by what is going on with this Lost Records story from Don't Nod. And that comes out on February 18th. And then part 2 comes out, I think, in the spring. So they're releasing it, it looks like in 2 parts.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's like episode 1 or not kind of episode. It's like part 1 or chapter 1, I forget, but they had 2 parts announced. Like February 18 is one, and I think it's either 1 or 2 months later is the next part.
Making me wait, Tim.
Making us wait. That's right. I know how you'll do it. If you play it, you'll wait till it's all released, then you'll play it.
Yeah, basically that's exactly what's happening.
There's an 8-player co-op zombie game that was talked about. I think we've seen it announced before, called No More Room in Hell.
It does look fun, dude.
Looks like it's a cool zombie game. Yeah.
8 people together, like that looks like that could be really, really fun.
Yeah, a little Back 4 Blood, Left 4 Dead vibe of just like multiplayer zombie smashing fun. Arc Raiders also looks like a pretty fun co-op game. If they can deliver, this game was originally revealed 3 years ago, and then it went quiet, and now it's slated for 2025. But Arc Raiders does look really cool. It's got a cool style to it.
It kind of giving me like 80s vibes.
Yeah,
it gives me like this like sci-fi 80s vibes, which is cool.
Yeah, even with like the key art for it, with that the way they've used the colored stripes, just kind of has has a very distinct look to it. Little what's that one? Death Loop, a little Death Loopy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good call. 70s then, maybe not 80s. I'm thinking.
Yeah, it could be a little more 70s. Yeah. Infinity Nikki, as I described as just some weird anime nonsense.
So I think this was originally like a mobile game.
That's what it looks like.
And now it's being like sort of like retinkered to like be like a console thing, to like be all like it's a cute game. And
it's some girl who's got like pink pigtails and a short skirt running around with animals, and I'm just like, this is uncomfortable and nonsense. So
but I mean, it does look cute. It looks very cute.
I know. You got all your little animals, and they're all like singing and dancing together as you like go on boat rides. I don't know what this game's about.
I mean, that little cat with like the thing over its. I mean, come on. Like,
if my daughter saw it, she'd be like, "Oh, I like this," and I'd be like, "No, I'm not buying it for you."
No, play a real man's game.
We got a new trailer and early access date finally for Path of Exile 2. This game looks stellar. It looks so fun. I've been watching a lot of the preview stuff for this over the last year or more or so. And November 15th will be the early access date, so we'll be able to play it then. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Cannot wait for Path of Exile 2. And I know that's not the full game release, but it looks really awesome.
I mean, and free to play too, which is wild. So
yeah, that is pretty wild. So my hopes are still high for it, but yeah, when I hear that, I'm like,
I mean, the first one is pretty popular. I've never touched it. I've never really watched much of it, but
yeah. Dune Awakening, we got a gameplay overview. They did a deep dive on that. We saw a whole bunch of Dune Awakening. It is it's a little bit of everything. Our buddy Kyle, our co-host Kyle, in our group has been posting some overview trailers of it where they did a deep dive during this as well to show you what it's like to create your character and then get into the world. And I think it looks awesome. It comes out in 2025. It looks like a lot of fun. Survival meets MMORPG style game. It looks like a lot of fun.
Doom.
Yep. The Little Nightmare devs have a new game coming out in addition to Little Nightmares 3, and it's called Reanimal.
I wasn't expecting that.
It looks horrifying. So,
which I mean, is pretty much par for the course for them. So
yeah. It looks real scary, and that's even a creepy name. But yeah, the pig with the, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, they know how to make some really like they're good at like the whole like you're playing as this little character running around in this world with these horrifying things that are much bigger than you. Like so,
Yep.
you know, it adds that little extra bit of like, you know, terrifyingness. Yeah, that I wonder if this is in the same universe then, because it's like it's the same style, the same kind of like type of game as Little Nightmares, from what I could tell. So yeah, I
Can
don't
you hear
know
me
if
now?
that's
Can you hear me
yeah
now? I just
yeah
messed up my own sound, but you can hear me
uh,
okay?
yeah. I didn't hear anything like anything wrong
It
or
just did it just go quiet?
you were just quiet, but I mean,
Okay.
I thought you were like reaching for something. So
No, I'm just trying to. What about now? Can you hear me now still?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to load this USB thing for my son. I unplugged the wrong USB
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. Okay.
Don't blame me.
Yeah, dude, Reanimo looks creepy. Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Listen, I don't care about Fatal Fury games, but I guess if you're into this, then
I guess if you're yeah,
that's a thing that's happening.
that
So
is the thing that's happening.
so yeah, are you into Fatal Fury at all? Is that
It's
your
a fighting game series, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always wait. This is not. Hold on. Oh, maybe Fatal Fury is ones that I have not played. What SNK? I'm thinking the SNK characters because I've played like Capcom versus
King of
SNK
Fighters, maybe? I don't know.
and King of Fighters. Yeah, like SNK, which is King of Fighters. But these characters are not looking familiar to me, so I've not played any of the Fatal Fury games. No.
Okay, gotcha.
Looks nice though. I like the look of this. This looks good.
Yeah.
The art style.
I mean, I know you're more into fighting games than I am. So,
Yeah, I mean, I do lean more Mortal Kombat because that's like the only fighting game series I've actually ever been like competent at. But yeah, I think this like looks nice. So.
yeah. Yeah. And then they talked about Monument Valley 3, which looks exactly like Monument Valley 1 and 2, but that's not an insult. Those games are very stylish and have a cool design to them, and they are creative little puzzles, but to me it is very much a mobile game, and that's fine. Yeah, so Monument Valley 3 comes out on December 10th. Oh, and by the way, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves comes out April 24th, 2025. So they already had a release date set for that with some special editions, and they were announcing characters and stuff. We got a release date for the DLC for Starfield, which looks like a lot of fun, called Shattered Space. Comes out the end of September. Um, Almost exactly a year. It's like a year and a month from its original game release. And I gotta tell you, I've been playing so much No Man's Sky right now. I think it'd be hard for me to shift gears back to Starfield just because No Man's Sky just lets you do literally everything you'd want to do in a space exploration game, and Starfield is much more Bethesda style, where
Yeah,
you're talking to people and there's an ongoing story. And No Man's Sky is much more the universe is literally your playground. So anyway, not that it'd be hard for me. That was a wrong way. That was a dramatic way to put it. But you know what I'm saying. It would be a
it's just more
weird,
focused experience for sure.
yeah, it'd be a weird transition back to it. But I do want to play that DLC. I did love Starfield. I think people were overly critical of it personally.
Yeah.
There's this awesome new anthology series coming out December 10th to Amazon Prime called Secret Level. I've seen so many people sharing
Yeah.
this. It looks so fun. Think like the Jedi Tales or Tales of the Jedi or whatever, that Disney series, the anthology where it was all these different
Shorts.
styles and short stories. Exactly. It looks like that, but in video game worlds. Man, it looks awesome. It looks really
Um,
cool.
Also, I just want to point out and I can't remember his name. Shame on me. Like, because he came out and like he made an impression. Like the dude that's like the producer.
I think he directed
director
didn't
or
he direct one of the
director.
Deadpool movies, but he also created the Love, Death and Robots
Love, Death,
show.
and Robots. Yeah.
I feel like
But
he
like
did. Did he do
he
a
was like
Deadpool movie?
I don't know. I know Keeley said like he mentioned Love, Death, and Robots, but I can't remember if he also said something else. But that dude like came out and he
Tim
was like,
Miller. Yeah, it was Tim Miller.
okay, yeah,
And
then
he was
so
oh
that
yeah, and
sounds
he
familiar.
directed the first Deadpool.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Well, then he's very talented, but he was just clearly very passionate. Like he was getting choked up. He's like, we've been working on this for like 3 years, man, and like we super care about this. And like then when they showed it, and I've been seeing screenshots of like things I even missed, like Mega Man. There's gonna be a Mega Man like story in there. I was like, what? Mega Man? You could and freaking Kratos is like God of War is gonna be in there too. Like, dude, there's like a whole hodgepodge of things in there. An Armored Core story.
Yep.
They're like
super cool, man. I'm very excited for this.
Yeah.
And that also comes out in December 10th for that Secret Level series on Amazon Prime. So I'm all over that one. That'll be a fun one.
Absolutely.
And it's that good time of year too. You're kind of celebrating a year of games. The Game Awards are right around the corner. Holidays are happening. To me, that's a good time to kind of, I don't know, just celebrate gaming in general. So I'm all for it, man. I think that's great.
Absolutely.
And you're right. He did get real emotional sharing about it. So you could tell it was. I think he was nervous. You could tell as he was talking, he was nervous. But you could tell he cares about this a lot. Like this guy clearly loves something about gaming. I don't know if that means he is a gamer or if he loves the stories of games or I don't know what it is, but something really got to him with this project. I think that's really cool. So
well, I think this medium too, like telling, because again, when you actually look at like what they showed and all the different like properties that they're gonna have in it, like telling, even if it is little short stories, like again, like I think Mega Man to me is like a big deal. We don't really get anything Mega Man anymore, except for the occasional going back to the classic Mega Man, because we got what 10 and 11. So like that was really, those are like really the last like new Mega Man anythings that we've gotten. So Mega Man hasn't gotten enough love, Tim, in years.
Agreed. All right, so we've got Herdling, this adventure game, kind of has a cuteness to it where you herd these beasts around. It's from the folks who made those Far. They did two of them, Far Sails and then Far. I played both of those games. They're really fun. You're like keeping your little. It's a side-scrolling game. You're keeping your little ship afloat and picking up fuel and stuff along the way. And they also did Firewatch. So they, they tell very kind of quieter, or I guess at least I don't know. They tell meaningful stories. Not everyone loved Firewatch. That's totally fine. I thought it was really cool.
It was
this game. This game Herdling. It looks like you're this kid, little shepherd, who is herding these kind of bipedal creatures, because it looks, maybe they were running on all fours at one point, but it looked like they were walking on hind legs at one point. It looks interesting. You're definitely trying to get them through all these different environments somehow. So there you go. Comes out in 2025. Peter Molyneux came out of Fable and other games fame, but I see Peter Molyneux, I think of Fable. And he's got this game Masters of Albion, which recently he did confirm, like, hey, the reason we can't copyright this is because it is in the world of Fable. Like, okay. But yeah, it's going to have town building, tower defense, and in-depth design options where you really can craft everything from like the food they eat to what weapons you use, like a lot of customization, and every decision you make makes a difference in how it plays and all that kind of stuff. So it's a brand new team that he put together for this game called Masters of Albion. I didn't see a release window on that, but I'm interested in that one. I like kind of a mixture of genres.
Are people allowed to make games about Albion but can't call it Fable? Like, how does that? So, because that's what that means, right? Like, it takes place in Albion, but he said they couldn't.
I don't know. All I saw was that headline about how it takes place in Albion, but we can't get the copyright.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
and I don't know if like the world of Albion comes from like something like a book series or something. Then, and that's
I think it was. Now it's Microsoft's IP, so I think it's just owned by them. But anyway,
interesting.
If you ever play games on Netflix, which you can apparently on your phone, I've had them advertised to me when I open Netflix on my phone, but I don't think I've ever. Oh, on PC, okay. I don't think I've ever really played any games from my Netflix account. I might have downloaded one or two, but I never actually played them. Anyway, they have one coming out. Of course, it's a Squid Game, which makes sense, called Squid Game Unleashed. It does look like a pretty stylish, kind of visually interesting adaptation of that popular show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But, I mean,
yeah.
Game on Netflix. I mean,
I'm with you. Unknown 9 Awakening looks pretty interesting. It's got the actress who played Yennefer from The Witcher show. Comes out October 18th. I think this game looks pretty interesting. I'm trying not to compare everything I see to Forspoken, but I did get a little bit of Forspoken vibes with some of the power she was throwing around, but don't know if it's going to actually play or look anything like it. But I had just that little moment where I made that connection a little bit. But
it doesn't look as like slick or anything, because I mean there was like a slickness, to Forspoken, but yeah, I mean hopefully it has like a cool story, like an interesting story there. So And hopefully she doesn't mention anything about her cuff. Cuff. That old thing.
All right, one of my favorite upcoming games, just in terms of like how cool it looks, how unique it looks, is the first Berserker Kazan.
Yeah.
This game looks so cool, and they showed more of it. It's coming out in 2025. Dude, it looks super bloody. It's got this great like anime Viking style. It's clearly a Souls game. We talk about Souls likes. This is obviously a Souls game.
Anime Souls.
I am absolutely here for it. I don't care if people are tired of Souls likes. That's fine. This one looks like it's absolutely in that vein. Maybe it's not gonna be, but it looks like it to me. And man, does it look amazing and crazy. So
I mean, I wonder if this is like associated with the Berserker manga series. Like I don't actually know if it is, or it just happens to have the word Berserker in it.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I could be completely wrong. Which I shame on me. I don't actually know much about that series. I just know it's super violent, but I've heard it's very good. But yeah, it looks awesome. It definitely the anime aesthetic is very sharp and nice.
Yep. Looks amazing. That comes out in 2025, as well as Flowtopia, which looks like absolutely an Animal Crossing spinoff.
Right, Tim.
Or ripoff. Comes out in 2025, but yeah.
I showed this to my wife, and we're very excited. All right.
You should be excited. You knock yourselves out. You have fun. It looks very much like Animal Crossing, doesn't it? No?
It looks like exceptionally adorable, though. Like, exceptionally. Like, the actual, like, look of it is, like... I don't know if that's actually what, like, in-game, like, it's gonna look like, but, like, if you're into, like, super cutesy games, like, it's actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
Got
Flowtopia.
Yep.
The last two announcements. We knew that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is going to be talked about. We actually have a release date now. Troy Baker talked about it. At first, I was like, that doesn't sound like he's doing a very good Harrison Ford voice. Turns out he was just talking as himself, talking about the game. I was like, that's his Harrison Ford just sounds like Troy Baker. No, but anyway, I know it's not going to sound just like Harrison Ford, but like try a little bit, Troy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm pretty sure he'll do a good job. I think in the one trailer we did hear his voice really briefly, and it sounded a lot like him. So
yeah.
Coming December 9th to PC and Xbox, and then they announced it's coming to PlayStation 5 in 2025, in the spring of 2025. We're going to talk about that in just a second. I have a question for you about that. Last but not least, they gave us a teaser of a game set in old world Sicily called Mafia: The Old Country. They don't have a release date on it yet, but holy crap, do I want a game like that, where it's a Mafia style open world game, but it's in Sicily and maybe some southern Italy, and oh man.
Well, what was the time they said? Like in the early 1900s?
Yeah, it'll be early 1900s, like pretty much as the Mafia as we know it from that time period got started, and kind of where it originated from. And I am, dude, yeah.
That's very unique. Very unique. Like having a big budget game like that in that time frame. Like
I immediately picture, some of the flashback scenes from Godfather 2, which is like half of that game was Robert De Niro as a young not Michael Corleone, the dad. Anyway, it was flashing back to him, and Robert De Niro was like speaking all Italian in Godfather 2. And just I'm like, ooh, dude, if we have a game that's like that, it's gonna be so good.
There you go. Yeah.
So okay. That was the last announcement, was a teaser for Mafia: The Old Country. Let me ask you this when it comes to Indiana Jones and just Xbox and PlayStation 5 in general. When you see something like that, do you think, yeah, that makes sense because Xbox is they've acquired so much, they still want to sell out? Or do you go the much more negative route, which I can understand too, which is, yeah, Xbox is kind of giving up on their console. Like, what do you think when you see that? When you see that's coming to PlayStation 5 as well?
I mean, I think the fact that it's coming a little later, they're giving it a little bit of that room to breathe on Xbox. So it's like, if you own an Xbox and that happens to be the console that you own, you just don't have a PlayStation, then hey, you do get that little window of exclusive. It kind of actually reminds me of what was it, the second Tomb Raider? Was it Rise? Where there was that window there where PlayStation then got it later.
Had like almost a full year, I think, when they did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Like, to me, it's fine. Like, go make your money. Like, go sell it on Xbox. Have your little exclusivity.
But isn't it going to be on Game Pass? Like,
is it?
I think so. Maybe it's not.
Say the Game Pass thing at the end. I don't.
Maybe it's not. That'd be one of the first party. Now it is going to be a first party Xbox game that's not on Game Pass day and date.
let me Google this because I'm curious because they do love throwing everything on Game Pass.
That
Which
just to me that's a little strange. It's like, well, put it on Game Pass, you can play it there, or 3 months later you can buy it on the console that's still trying. You know what I mean?
so that's still true. Yeah, I mean, as we're going along, as we've been going along, Tim, this year in particular, I'm like even less and less like, or rather, I'm more and more concerned about these devs and are they profiting off of Game Pass?
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder if Game Pass, as we know it, the experiment that is Game Pass, is going to be wrapping up sooner than we think. But I don't know.
yeah, or it's just going to become like really expensive, and it's going to be one
Really
of those things where
expensive, or
not as
it'll
many
kind
people.
of change back to be a little more like PlayStation Plus, where very rarely do you get a major game day and date. And you
Yeah.
know what I mean? They could shift
Mhm.
gears that way.
It is coming to Game Pass though.
Day
So,
one?
yeah, play day one with Game Pass. Yep, available
Yeah.
December 9th. So,
Same with Call of
I
Duty
mean,
this fall, you know? So
yeah, yeah.
all right, we'll see how that goes. I don't know.
All
Maybe
right.
maybe them giving up is a little bit of a dramatic way to look at it, but to me, I look at that and I'm just like, what are you doing?
Well,
I
it
don't
makes
know.
it makes even more. I mean, like in my opinion, anyways, with these other games, like what's the pirate one there?
Sea of Thieves, yeah.
TFC. So like that, was on Xbox for a while,
That
and then they were
absolutely
like,
made sense to bring over.
so
Yes.
yeah, bring it
And
over now,
Pentiment
make
to
it a
Switch is a great move. I don't know if they
yeah,
sold many, but that was made sense as well. Yeah.
yeah. I think maybe like a bigger window. Well, I mean, spring. When does spring end? So
Technically, the
December.
spring, it could go up to May. They could still call
Yeah.
that spring.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe giving it a little bit of a wider window
Could be
makes it
six
feel
months. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, maybe they should have gone the year or even 2 years to kind of really make it feel extra special on
Or not
Xbox.
even say it's coming to PlayStation. Announce that some other time. But I
Yeah,
think, like, when I see this, the reason why I think it is actually a big deal is they're announcing that as if it's amazing news. And I guess if you're a
sure.
PlayStation 5 owner, that is amazing news. That's great. I think it's cool that PlayStation 5 owners are going to get to play the new Indiana Jones game, that's very cool. But
Mm.
if you're an Xbox owner, like for example, I look at the Xbox Series X that I have purchased in the last year and a half, and I'm like, why did I buy that thing? I don't think I need it. Like I don't know. It feels like a waste of money now.
I
But
mean, because there are some exclusives, but I
but
mean,
I play them on PC. I don't really need it. I don't know why I got it,
sure.
you know? Um, just got caught up in the moment and got one because it was a really good deal, you know?
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I mean, I'm still at the end of the day a console person. So even though I do have this bad boy back here,
mhm.
I still prefer the comfort of sitting on the couch with the controller,
Yeah, that's fair.
chilling out. So that's still my thing. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, that was it for the Gamescom opening night live recap. Overall, decent show, nothing to like get crazy
fine.
about, but a lot of
It
good
was
2025 stuff to get excited about. A few things for this year, like Indiana Jones is still coming out this year, and a few other things that look cool for this year.
yeah.
But
I mean, I'm like so I'm like skimming through really fast here, and there's for me personally, there's nothing here where I'm like, oh man, that's crazy that they should like this was
agreed.
like
There's
very
some
kind
things that I'm very
of
interested in, but
yeah.
nothing that I didn't know about before that now has me going, holy crap, dude, you
Yeah, I
know?
can't believe they showed that there.
And that's no insult to things like the new Dying Light spinoff or Borderlands 4 or even Mafia: The Old Country. I think that's a pretty exciting announcement. But the
It
fact
is.
that like it was such a brief teaser and then the developer talked about it quickly, but it's so
Yes.
early in development, you can tell like that's probably a
If they
2026
showed us
game.
some like minute to 2 minute like gameplay thing of that game at the end, then I would be like, that's the thing that I was like, oh,
I would have been
that's
pumped,
freaking cool.
but I am not expecting this game within the next 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that doesn't mean I'm not excited for it, but it does feel like yet another very early announcement for something we won't see for a long time.
Yes.
That's just my guess. So anyway,
Sure.
overall a decent show. It's fun to see some new announcements, but nothing too crazy. And I'm not expecting that every single one of these to be crazy. Like it wasn't. It was just 2 months ago we had Summer Game Fest live. You know, like it. It's not like we needed another huge list of announcements that are all brand new and super exciting. But yeah, overall it was pretty fun. Pretty fun show. I know that he has to work it around when Gamescom is scheduled, but it does feel a little too quick compared to Summer Games Fest for there to be a lot of new things to say.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, a couple of headlines I thought were interesting, and then we'll wrap up with anything that we're playing or watching. You mentioned Sea of Thieves, just apparently a past 1 million sales on the PlayStation 5.
There you go, some extra monies. There you go.
I mean, that game came out in 2018. Okay, this game is
Yeah.
6 years old, and they finally released it on PlayStation 5 this year. And from all reports, at least, it has been a hit on the PlayStation 5 as a third-party port. Like it is a literal port of a game that's been out for 6 years. This
Yeah.
game came out the same year as Red Dead Redemption 2 and Monster Hunter World and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spider-Man 1, the first Spider-Man from
Oh man,
uh,
Insomniac.
Insomniac, thank you. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like,
Yeah, and
this
again, it
game
makes
came
total
out that
sense to
year.
me.
Yeah.
That and you make that little bit of you get that little bump of income, and that's smart. I think that is
Yeah.
smart doing
Yeah.
that.
And by the way, that's coming from someone myself. I love Sea of Thieves. I think the game is super fun. I have a blast with it, whether I'm playing solo or with friends. I think it's a super fun game. But yeah, it's interesting how well it's done on PS. I would not have predicted it would have been that successful on PS5. But
Yeah.
here we are. Speaking of games that have kind of a predatory pricing structure, when you want to buy extra stuff on there, it's very expensive.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But I mean, it's not unlike any other online stores out there. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want my boat to look like that. That looks cool. Oh, like $20 just for that one set of things. Like,
For that pretend stuff that I put on my
that's
pretend thing.
it's just a lot, you know?
It is.
I like
It
to
is.
earn stuff in the games. You know, I'll pay you even full price for a game if you let me unlock cool stuff like that in the
Tim,
game.
I truly miss the days of video games where it was like, oh, I get to go on this side quest and I find this secret thing. Look at
Yeah.
how cool that secret thing is. That's
Now
like
it's
not
like,
a thing.
hey, come just buy this thing and you have
Yeah,
it.
just give us $30 more and we'll give you this, aesthetically pleasing thing. Like,
Yep. I mean, we've just talked about things like Knights of the Round and Final Fantasy VII, the old school one. Like, those were the good old days. We had to print out the
those,
game
yeah.
facts guide
Yeah.
to get things.
Imagine if in part 3, Tim, that is DLC you have to buy. Could
Oh
you
my
imagine?
The whole
Could you
DLC is
imagine?
just the cutscene of the summon. That's all it is.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
People would burn Square Enix literally to the ground.
I will say, if it is DLC, a good title for it would just be Knights of the Round, and they tell a story around it. That would be kind of cool. But
There you go. There you go.
all right. Speaking of PlayStation 5 is reportedly selling out in China. Now, this
Yeah.
did happen just like everywhere else in the world for the first couple of years, but the sales and demand kind of leveled out over the last couple of years since. But with the release of Black Myth Wukong, apparently it is really hard for them to keep it in stock, especially at their largest electronics store. They can barely accommodate demand. And according to this report, demand is now resulting in another wave of scalpers who are reselling it for higher prices. Here we go again. So
Here we go.
but
Communism wins.
but hey, that is good news for PS5. Good news for them that Xbox decided to launch with a Series S, because that meant the developers were like, sorry, Xbox is going to have to wait. That meant it is now a console timed exclusive inadvertently, and PlayStation 5 is getting a huge boost in console sales. Now,
There you go.
they probably would have anyway. I feel like PlayStation 5 is way more popular in China than Xbox, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's yet another little ripple effect of Xbox trying to double dip into last gen and current gen at the same time.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah.
Which I remember at the time we talked about it on the podcast. Like, don't know if this is a good idea. Some people think it's a great idea. You know, back and forth. We were we were just guessing. You know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I definitely appreciate the option that's cheaper because some people just can't afford like the more expensive stuff, and I think having options is nice. But yeah, I mean, the Xbox is historically not been great penetrating the Asian markets, so
You just wanted to say that. All right. The best-selling game of 2024 is now College Football 25.
Look at that.
College
Welcome
football,
back.
baby. It has overtaken
Welcome back.
Helldivers 2 as the best-selling game year to date in the US. We know that's going to change when Call of Duty releases, blah, blah, blah. We know
Sure.
that. Although, will the game being on Game Pass bring down their overall sales numbers?
I'm really
Maybe.
curious because again,
Maybe.
how do you equate and like I don't understand. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't
Or
make
will a
sense.
game like Black Myth Wukong continue to have incredible legs in terms of its sales? And will that start to slowly catch up? Not unlike Hogwarts Legacy did, how that just kind of momentum kept rolling.
Sure.
So who knows? But for right now, it is college football at the top of the heap in terms of sales, which to me, of course, is great news. That means that not only was there a lot of hunger for this from the fans like myself, but also they made a good game. They just made a good game, and
Yeah.
people are buying it and word of mouth on it's very positive. It's not perfect. It certainly has its glitches and its problems, but I think it's great.
Well, it's a good comeback because then that
Great
means, 'cause
comeback. Yeah,
if it didn't come back strong and people are like, oh, this actually sucks, like it could have gone away again.
that's right.
So hopefully it doesn't.
So I thought this was interesting. With the announcement for Borderlands 4, these quotes from Randy Pitchford resurfaced from 2019. So let me just give you this context for the Epic Store, which is
What did Randy say?
it's an online store for PC gaming. One that's always been trying to compete with Steam, and I think they've done some cool things to catch my attention, but they never are quite up to par. It's not my first choice for whatever reason. The UI, the
Hmm.
availability of games. I do like the free game they give away. Some of their sales are pretty great, but something about it, it just doesn't hit the same way that Steam does. I can't really explain it. So, and I think Epic is realizing that now too. So, just for some context, Epic launched its PC games marketplace in December of 2018, after Sea of Thieves released, by the way,
Hmm.
as a rival to Valve's dominant Steam platform. And in a bid to take market share, they offered game makers a more generous revenue split, which I didn't realize this. Apparently, Steam is a
Oh,
70-30 split,
right. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
and Epic is an 88-12 split. That is a big difference in
yeah.
the revenue share. So Epic only taking 12%
Yep.
of your revenue as opposed to
I
Steam
completely
taking
forgot about that.
30%, which I don't know if those numbers are totally accurate. This is all according to this article from Video Games Chronicle. Um, Epic has spent heavily to secure major third-party timed exclusives. We've seen that with a few games here and there where it's only been on Epic Games before it comes to Steam. I think that was like stuff like Prince of Persia, that side-scrolling game, just now hit Steam. That was only on Epic Games for a bit. So they've
Okay.
made some deals with companies like Ubisoft and others, and their own, of course, publishing arm that only puts it on Epic, and then eventually it'll go to Steam. And they've invested millions in this weekly free game giveaways, which I've always added into my library. Every time there's a free game, I add it. I add it, even if I don't care about it, I add it.
Yeah.
But according to Epic CEO Tim Sweeney, the store continues to struggle to take market share from Valve, and it's still sitting at around 15% of the market share. Has not really moved that needle much from there, which is to me 15% is still impressive because Steam is such a monster.
Right.
Um, so all this because in 2019, when Borderlands 3 was announced as an Epic Game Store exclusive, there was a big Twitter thread from Randy Pitchford where he claimed, when we look back at Steam in 5 to 10 years, it may look like a dying store. So in his mind, he was jumping on the Epic train on its way up, and Steam was on its way down. And he
Hmm.
really thought that the more attractive commercial terms and friendliness to developers and that kind of thing was going to launch Epic past Steam.
Sure.
And of course, after Borderlands 4 was announced, these comments resurfaced. Not too surprising. And he has responded to that, basically saying, like, listen, I had high hopes for the Epic Games Store, and it turns out those were ultimately overly optimistic. But he
Yeah.
did have a whole lot more to say. If you read all of it, like he had a lot to say where he still kind of says the same thing, like, well, it should have or could have or might maybe still will, but he wants more competition for Steam, which I agree with at its core. I think competition is a good thing across consoles and stores and all of it. But yeah, I
I
thought that was
mean,
interesting.
like it's tough because like literally you see people like say just and we've joked about it before the whole like oh I gotta click on another storefront. It's like
Yeah.
literally the 10 seconds it takes to click on a thing on your desktop and like that
No,
stops people from using a whole other
I know.
storefront
Yeah.
like so
True
it's
though.
yeah like that's if they're gonna try to like get more better numbers it's like well like how do you bypass just straight up laziness like
Yep.
somebody not wanting to click on another icon.
That's right.
Like I
I
don't
would
know.
actually argue that 15% of the market share is probably thanks to Fortnite by all by
Sure,
itself,
sure.
Um, maybe a few others here and there, but Fortnite has got to be one of the biggest driving factors for that. So,
Yeah.
because that is still not available on Steam, you have to play it on Epic Games, I think.
Which makes sense. Which makes sense.
Of course it
Yeah.
does. But yeah, he basically wrapped it up by saying, we'll all be watching, and I hope that out there somewhere are more companies and more storefronts that will stand up to Steam and essentially like create competition where Steam has to think customer first.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about the console market. Like I would love to see someone really push Sony so they could be at their best when they have a really strong competitor. Um,
Yeah.
you could argue maybe Nintendo has been a good motivator for them with just how well they sell in general, just because you could argue they're taking some of their market share, but I don't know, their audiences are very different. There's a good amount of overlap. Folks like you and me, we like both, but
Oh yeah.
overall, I would say the vast majority of Nintendo fans that are getting Switches aren't going to play on PlayStation or Xbox. Like they're just, you know what I mean? Like there's
There's definitely a lot of purchases for kids and stuff. So
purchases for kids, for very casual gamers, for someone who just wants a handheld system. So I don't know, not really a direct competitor to PlayStation in the same way, but I do like when both of them are doing well and firing shots at each other. I think they're at their best. I think we saw PlayStation 4 as a direct response to how well Microsoft gave it to Sony during the 360 era
sure.
against PS3. And the 360 was such a cool system. And you could say the same thing. Microsoft gave us one of their best shots after being totally dominated by the PlayStation 2. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I kind of like when there's a little bit of a volley. It's no secret that PlayStation has been dominant throughout pretty much all of the generations. But I don't know. I feel like they've
Yeah.
been driven forward to better things when there's a strong competitor on the other side. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, the games I think speak for for that.
very true.
You want
Very
to
true.
have the good. You want to have the
Yeah,
games, and that's why exclusives do matter.
they do.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the driving force. It's like, oh, you can only get this here, and then I think that's why we have these conversations about Xbox with Indiana Jones. It's like, well, that's like a 5, maybe 6 month window there, guys. Like, do you maybe want to stretch that out a little bit so you can kind of be like, hey, we got this exclusive over here,
Yep.
But
Yep. Agreed.
uh,
All right, man. Let's wrap it up with stuff that we are playing or watching. I saw you got a few things on your list. Why don't you tell us some of the stuff that you've been playing or things you were watching, or if you want to talk about your streaming stuff you're doing.
yeah. Well, I did skip a week there, so I got a laundry list, Tim. Got a laundry list. Not really. So I last time I mentioned I platinumed Final Fantasy 1. I've now platinumed Final Fantasy 2. Um,
Heyo.
so then chipping away at 3. I haven't gone back into it in a bit since like the week before that, but yeah, I'm working on 3 as well. So yeah, then I'll be halfway platinuming those as well. So that's fun.
Nice.
Tim, I finally jumped back like 8 months later, Tim.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
8 months later into Alan Wake 2, and I
Nice.
finished it. Um, I finished it. The first thing I will say is for anybody playing that game, don't take 8 months off of that game because you're gonna jump back in and be like, what the f is
Yeah.
like. And I was like further than I thought. Like I think I was like, if I'm gonna throw a percentage on it, like between 60 and 70% done. So I was like, oh, I was like pretty far along too.
Yeah. Did you
Um,
end up watching any kind of recaps to catch you back up, or just went for it?
no, because I think I would say for the most part I was fine. There was just like I have a hard time sometimes when you have a lot of characters in a game and
Hmm.
names getting thrown around. I'm like, who is that again? I think there was like a couple names that got thrown around where I was like, shit, I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember who that is. But I would say like overall by the end, like once I did finish it, like yeah, I think enough things clicked where I was like, oh okay, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. Man, that game is just wild, man. What a beautiful game too. Speaking of
Yeah.
lighting and all of that, or like how we were talking, just because that game has a lot of dark. There's just a lot of dark sections in that game, um, and just the absolute like visual like insanity that happens, especially when you're in Alan's sections
Hmm.
of just shifting rooms around, like And you got to be like really smart to like figure out that kind of stuff because like
I
it's like
know.
literally like puzzle pieces like
I
the
don't
game
judge anyone
development.
who has to use a guide for that because it gets real confusing real fast.
Yeah, because like you're on his side, you have like the board, how she's using the board to figure out the crimes and like investigate the stuff. Like he's using it to be like, all right, so here's like what's going on my end, and I have this area of like there's that hotel thing. That hotel was confusing. That was probably my most confused part. The second area after the subway section. You go to that murder mystery like hotel like area. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know
Yep.
if you
Yep.
recall
Yep.
that area.
I do, of
Um,
course.
and that one was like a lot. There was like a lot of different things, and you're taking all the different like words that you like get, and then it shifts everything, and
Yep.
you're having, and you're just like, there's just a lot of like having to explore because once you like change the surroundings based off of like the new like word that you throw on there, you're like, all right, so like what's different around here? Like what's
Mm-hmm.
going on? So it's just a lot of like having to explore and like pay attention to things.
Yep.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. But it's very interesting and very, very cool.
Cool
Um,
usage of the author approach from, Alan Wake, of course, being an author,
yeah, yeah,
combining like the dark place with the real world and the back and forth and
yeah,
who's really where and who's in control and who's bad. And
yeah.
I thought it was a great kind of twisted, almost what was it? Like Twilight Zone style story, just like the
Very-
first one was.
Yeah,
But I think the
yeah,
second one did an even better job. I didn't understand a lot of it, but by the end I felt like I had enough of the main pieces. I
yeah,
understood the final climactic showdown. I knew what we were trying to do. I kind of understood how it wrapped up and like how they're leading us potentially into the next thing.
yeah.
So I don't know if you felt the same way. If you took the time off, did you feel like you got enough to know, like, okay, I see what happened here at the end?
I think the thing that I'm still the most confused on, and real quick, if somebody wants to just like skip ahead 10 seconds and not know the word I'm about to use, if
Yeah.
you haven't played Alan
Skip
Wake,
ahead if you don't want to hear anything about Alan Wake 2. Okay.
like 10, yeah, 10, 15 seconds is just the scratch stuff. I just
Hmm.
don't quite remember if they really like were like, this is why Scratch exists. I don't
Uh,
remember what created Scratch. That's what
it,
I
it
don't
was connected a lot with one,
want.
but they do dig into it in two quite a bit. And a lot of that's optional too, by the way. Some of the
Okay.
stuff you learn about what's happening is
Yeah.
optional. Yeah.
I just don't remember the purpose of it because it almost kind of felt like so like Alan create this thing that's supposed to be like there in the real world to be in place of him because he's stuck in the dark place, but Scratch is like evil, so it's like so he like put this evil thing in the real world, which then is effing with his wife and all that. Like, so it's very weird because it's like, what is actually quite like the deal with like, you know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
that was kind of I just didn't
I
have a
don't think it was purposeful, and the
okay.
actual source I don't think is totally revealed. I think there's been some hints towards it. Could be anything from just mental issues he has combined with the superpowers slash supernatural abilities for some reason his writing has, where he didn't realize he was creating this evil thing through his writing.
Because that's what the
But
dark place is. It feeds off of
yeah,
art and all that stuff. Like
and
they
so
say
it's
that.
kind of like it's like one of the world changing events they talk about in
Mhm.
Control is people with these powers, which of course Jesse uses as she's developing throughout the game of Control.
Yeah,
And Alan Wake is essentially one of those people who has these abilities, for better or worse, for whatever reason. It's
yeah,
just in this kind of like somewhat modern but supernatural world where there are people with powers, and he's got a little X-Files ish in some way, or Fringe
right.
maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
where it's kind of
Especially
like it's not totally explained, but you get an idea of like, okay, he's got powers and he created something he didn't mean to create just by writing, and now
yeah.
he's trying to fix it and he's trying to write his way out of it. But it turns out he's been stuck in this weird writing loop by his nemesis.
But it's
And
not a it's a
I
spiral,
know,
right?
it's a spiral. That's right.
What?
Yeah, that
And
dude,
they
it's
apparently
really clever and mind bendy.
well, and they when they updated the game, like there's a new game plus Tim that like actually expands on stuff apparently.
Yeah, I never did do that.
Right. So I didn't either. So when I was because like I saw because it has it has like a name to it, like that's not just New Game Plus on the menu. I was like, so what is that? And I Googled, like, it was like, oh, it's part of the more recent update, and it's actually expands on stuff, and it's like kind of give like basically kind of like the real ending, and it's like, god damn it, like now I have to play all the way through again. Which I kind of do definitely want to do eventually, because I did really like both of these games. It was fun to finally like get to Alan Wake and then go into this one. But yeah, it is. This trippy stuff can be, even if you don't 100% get it, it can be really fun for sure. When you get enough pieces of it, you're like, oh, this is like really interesting and just really out there and like wild and just messes with your brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely really fun. I'm glad that I actually did circle back around to it and finish it.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad you did too.
I also jumped, so I finished that, and then right before starting Wukong, I jumped back into Dragon's Dogma 2.
Okay.
Because I started both of those games.
Just Alan a small Wake game you thought you'd jump over to. Sure.
Well, both of them, because I mean, Alan Wake's not a short game either.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But then Rebirth came out. So it was like, then I got distracted with Rebirth. So then, a bunch of time passed, and I hadn't gone back to both of these games. But yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2 also just absolutely amazing. It's like I was saying, and I don't know if you saw when I was
I did.
Kyle and I were going back and forth a little bit. Like, this game gives me that sensation of like when you're playing Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom, of like just going in a direction and like you stumble across something and or like you seeing it in the distance, you're like, what is that over there? Like, what's going on over there? And you just go over there and you're like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I just found this thing. Like, I can't believe I found this. Like, nobody's probably found this. Only I have found this. And that's kind of like, that's basically what Dragon's Dogma does. Like, you're just kind of going, you can follow the dirt main path there as you're going along, but then you see stuff off in the mountains and the cliffs, or like you see a waterfall, you go up there and then there's like an opening and you go in it, and there's this like labyrinthian like cave system, and there's like a mini boss in there, and you're finding treasure chests and stuff. So it's really fun to explore. It can be much like, did you play the first Dragon's Dogma?
Just a little bit, a couple hours.
Okay. Similar to that game, like getting around is definitely, they basically very much are like you're walking around, like you're mainly walking around. There's not like easy like jumping fast travel type stuff. There's items you can get to fast travel, but it's pretty sparse. So it's really very much designed in a way to be like you want to be like going everywhere like by foot. So that can be tedious for people, and I totally understand 100% and respect it if that's not your thing. If you're like, no, I kind of just want to fast travel like whenever I want. But yeah, it's really cool, and combat is really cool. Just like the first one, climbing on monsters and like cutting off body parts, and then they flail about as you like cut off whatever it is. Yeah, it's a really good time. It's really fun. It's a really fun game.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful too. Also looks really nice.
And it's a very short game, very small game.
Yeah, breezy game, absolutely. Breezy game. But yeah, I'll have to circle back around to that, because I don't know how long Wukong is. I have a feeling
I've heard it's at least 30 hours. But
oh, is it?
I could be wrong.
Okay. I was thinking maybe closer to 20, but I guess we'll see.
That's one of the things I was looking up, was how long to beat on another game. Let me look it up for this one too.
Okay. I was in my head, I was thinking kind of more like the amount of hours.
You can apparently finish the main story in 15, 16 hours.
Okay. All right.
But if you're doing main plus sides, it's 37. Completion is over 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can kind of breathe. Okay. That's not too bad then.
Pretty small polling size already. Or so far, I mean. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
It says the average is 30 hours for all play styles.
Okay.
But yeah, main story, there's a few people who have, in anywhere from 13 all the way up to 16 hours. So.
Okay. Yeah, so they probably kind of like breezed through it, because I definitely like explore a bit, so I'll definitely
you could be closer 16. To 30 hours,
I'll probably, for me, probably close. But I mean, Dragon's Dogma is definitely much longer than that.
Yeah.
But I do want to focus on Wukong too. But as far as streaming, Tim, so I wasn't here. I was not here last week because I did a 12-hour stream.
Oh boy.
So I was celebrating. I got 1K followers recently.
Congrats, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, to be honest, I just when I started, I was just like, listen, like this is just gonna be a fun thing that I do. I mean, I don't know numbers wise, what like it's so different for everybody, so you just really don't know. And I just
Yeah.
didn't know if I would ever really get to that. And there's definitely, many streamers that have much higher numbers than I do. But
Mm.
for me, I was like, well, okay, this is pretty special. Like 1K is pretty special.
Yeah.
Um, and I also hit 2 years of streaming and then 2 years of affiliate
Dang. Those are
around
some
this
big
time as well.
milestones, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I did a 12-hour stream. I played Super Mario Bros. 1, Tim. Super Mario Bros. 1 with crowd control.
Oh, so that
I'm
means they got
assuming
to
you
tell
don't
you
know
what
what
to
crowd
do.
control. So crowd control is like basically it's a little extension you can add to your stream. People click on it. You can get coins, which you basically spend money to get the coins, and essentially you can like mess with me while I'm playing Mario.
Nice.
Or you can help me, so you can throw like a power up at me, or you can turn all of the enemies to Hammer Bros. So you can just turn every Goombas, Koopas, whatever. They're all just Hammer Bros throwing hammers at me. So
Of course.
so that was really fun. And then I played just a little bit of Cuphead. I was just kind of like itching to play some Cuphead, so I was like, I'll throw
Mhm.
that in the mix. I played a little bit of Fortnite. And then I did a Kudo board, which they surprised me with, which is basically just like it's like like people just write nice things, and so they kind of surprised me with like a whole board of just like people, kind of like writing like letters like,
That's pretty fun.
"Hey, Dapper, you're cool." So that was actually really nice. It was
I like
there was
that.
some sweet stuff in there. And then I finished the stream with Final Fantasy X. Just a nice chill, just kind of chilling out with 10. So
Yeah.
because I had to end with Final Fantasy, right? So I was
You
like, I
did.
kind of just want to pop in 10,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was nice. It was like straight up, it was the best stream I've ever had because like I got, I think then it was 12 raids within the
Mm.
whole 12 hours, which is when raids into your channel, so they're bringing everybody over. So it's like it's the most raids I've ever had, and like it was just a good time. It was just I felt like I was just kind of like really like just feeling the energy of the stream, like because so this year like straight up I've just like it's been actually a little bit of a stressful year for me.
Mm.
Just because when with Renee's surgery earlier in the year, I was just like kind of like concerned about that, and then some family
Sure.
stuff that's going on. I won't dive into it, but just some stressful stuff. So it's just kind of been a bit stressful, and I've not been streaming as consistently this year as I did last year. So I think kind of going into that stream, I was just like, I'm just gonna go in. I'm not having any expectations. I want to have a good time and just hang out, and it was just really nice. It was just really nice for people to kind of show up and just be there. So.
Mm.
But yeah, it was very a very good time. It was a very good time.
That's good, man. I love it. I love hearing that.
Yeah. So
Well, congrats on all of those major milestones. That's a big deal.
yeah,
If
thank
you
you.
guys don't already, go make sure you check out Dapper Chocobo over on
Yeah.
twitch.tv. Is that what it is? Or just Twitch app?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's funny because like their mobile app is like kind of a little dinky sometimes, and it's like I
Yeah.
feel like most people are watching Twitch on their phone. You guys need to get your shit together and make this run a little better. Like
Yeah.
I
Agreed.
feel like most people are on there. So
Yep. I agree with that. Well, cool. Well, very good. Yeah, for me, the only. Or was there anything else that you were
I
planning on
just
watching?
I mean I'm about to I actually forgot to mention Stellar Blade. I'm still doing the challenge run.
Okay.
Um I'm playing on hard with the skin suit, and I haven't been picking up the extra like health increases, which apparently they let you get more health in the hard playthrough. I was like, oh, I don't need those. I'm gonna make it a little extra harder for myself. Tim, the end is excruciating. It's so hard. I had 3 bosses left going in. So last night, right? Yeah, last night. I was like, I'm gonna finale this. I'm gonna do this. I got 3 bosses. I can do this. Tim, it took me 4 hours just to kill the third to last boss.
Of course it
It took me
did.
4 hours.
Jeez.
And then I killed the second boss. So that was like nearly another 4 hours. And at that point, it was like 3 a.m. for me. So I was like, I can't do the very last one. I like did a couple rounds, and I was just like, I can't do this. I'm gonna have to do a part 2 of this finale because this is so
Yeah.
hard. It's just
Yeah.
so hard. But yeah, it was fun though. I'm almost done, so
Nice.
Fun accomplishment.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, the only thing I played new, I mean, I've been playing so much No Man's Sky. Like, so when I'm gaming, that is one of my main games I'm still playing. Found everything from a settlement that was on a frozen planet where this these crazy tornadoes will come through and like literally launch you up into the atmosphere, and you have to like jetpack your way back down because the storm's so
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
But I helped fight off a bunch of robots, and then these settlers all asked me to be the overseer for their village. So now I am. I'm trying to help them fix it up and
That's interesting.
get them to make money because you have to make these decisions that improve the town to the point where it's profitable. It starts out in a lot of debt, and you have to like make it
Oh,
profitable. But then it can just generate funds for you. Every once in a while, they'll call you back to make a decision or settle a dispute or something. But you can also create your own settlement and hire your own overseers and folks to run your own settlement that you make. So the game has a lot of that, a lot of freighters where you can build your own fleet and send them out on missions to go collect stuff. There's lots of these really, I think I might have talked to you about this already. These really cool, like derelict freighters that you can go investigate and you scavenge some incredible stuff. We've done a bunch of those. You get so much money from doing those. And then building your own starship. I've created a couple of them now. You just go and scavenge. You look for the emergency signals and you find a starship. You either sell it if you need money or you trade it in for a part if you like a wing or an engine or a cockpit view or whatever it is that you like about that ship. You can, most of them, you can salvage for parts and then build your own. So I've built two now. So I've got some ships that I really like. I'm just trying to like get them upgraded to better classes so they can install more weapons. I'm just having so much fun with that game, man. I've
is that
found some
your main ship
stuff.
that you're flying, or is it like holding your ships? Is it like the
So I
bigger
do
ship
have a
that's?
freighter that holds all my ships.
Oh,
I
okay. That's
currently
cool.
have three that I actively use. I have one that's really good for exploring. It literally is called an explorer ship. It doesn't do as well with fighting. It can fight. Like I've got some good upgrades on there to so it can hold its own. But then I actually have a fighter that can't travel as far and it wastes more fuel, but it's much better at fighting.
Okay.
And I have another one that's a like a hauler that doesn't really do much good, but I just have it in case I ever need a lot of inventory space, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you feel like you build your own fleet, and then you can trade it in at any point. You can recruit NPCs now. There's so much that you can do in this
Yeah.
game, and it looks really pretty. Like when you land on planets, it looks a lot better than it used to, for sure. So much more dynamic game than when it released 8 years ago. So
That's crazy. And I know that
yeah,
me and Kyle have said we like should play together, and
dude, I'm
I
all for it whenever. Yeah.
well, I think I actually know I bought it physically, but for some reason in my head I thought maybe at some point it was on PS Plus or something, and it wasn't. So I actually don't own the game.
So
So
sad.
I have to go buy. I have to go buy, and I had the
So
collect
sad.
too, Tim. I remember having the box, a nice box to it
Mm.
too. I freaking traded it in. And traded it in.
Sad times. But yeah, so that's really good. And then I played this game that came out, I think, last week called Feed the Deep. It reminds me a little bit of oh, it's this game, it's this core game. I gotta look it up now. Core, not Core Keeper. There's one where you're defending. Here, let me it's in my library. Hang on 1 second. Core, no, maybe it's not Core. Hmm. Well, I'll find it. It's a fun little game. How do you arrange by recent activity? There we go. I'll find it. But anyway, this is a side-scrolling kind of roguelike, sort of.
Hmm.
At least I think it's a roguelike. But yeah, you are a diver and you have a very limited amount of weight. So you're going down to like find treasures and bring them back. You trade those in for upgrades to your suit and all that. So a little Dave the Diver minus all the personality and like quirky running a sushi shop stuff that they have.
It was fun.
Which I freaking love that with that game. But yeah, and then you have like this little grapple hook, and you can only bring up like one item at a time, and you can't carry very heavy things, and you have to bring those up to the surface. But over time, you upgrade that, you can get more than one item at a time, and eventually carry more and more heavy stuff. Um, so yeah, it's got a lot of that vibe to it. Dome Keeper, not Core, Dome Keeper. That's what I was thinking of. So that is a game that I've played on the Steam Deck a whole bunch and that one's pretty fun. So yeah, same kind of thing there, except the dome keeper, you're doing it quickly because you're about to get attacked and you have to like defend your dome using all the resources that you've collected. This one doesn't have that, as far as I know. This one does have a thing where you're trying to collect enough resources to feed this thing called the Deep, some kind of monster creature. I don't know what it is yet, but that's the title of the game, Feed the Deep. So Anyway, it is definitely an indie vibe game, but I like it. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, playing that a little bit. Otherwise, it's all No Man's Sky all the time. And
Is on Game Pass, by the way. So I actually just looked and I'm like, oh, well, I could actually play it. So,
No Man's Sky is.
yeah, it's on Game
Well,
Pass.
there you
So
go.
heads up.
And
Everyone.
there is cross-platform. I've played on my PC with my son, who's been on the PlayStation 5.
There you go.
I'm pretty sure you can cross-play with Xbox too. It's just a matter of it's friend code-esque across No Man's Sky. That way you can play
Okay.
across platforms. But
There you go, Tim. I'll download it and then I'll have it on my PC.
do it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, listen, that does it for us this week. Thanks, Dan, for being here and for stepping back in after your that's a lengthy stream. So well done on doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You got to take breaks. You got to take breaks, Tim. All right.
You gotta take some breaks. You gotta take care of yourself.
Not a young whippersnapper. I'm just a whippersnapper.
You got those bio breaks, got those food breaks. You gotta have them.
You got to take them. Right.
But thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time as we talk Star Wars Outlaws. Can't wait for that. Hopefully, Kyle will be able to join us for that one. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.